Happy Monday, diehards, MMA fans, my degenerate gamblers. How's everybody doing out there? Welcome back to another episode of the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your man behind the camera, your friendly neighborhood degenerate Clint. This is Pub Sports Radio. Thank you so much, as always, to our sponsor for hosting this awesome show. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you already tuning in the chat. We've got everybody pumping here. Mike Harvey, Ethan in the house, Raw Torque saying, "Do Bronx, easy dog. That's what's up." We got Rexley in the house saying, "T-shirt, oi." George, Ray, Pro, what is up, my guy? Cash Nelson by decision. What a bet that is. Congratulations. Dixon Sider, Dream in the house. We've got Alan Loves MMA, Air Dog, Sean V. We got Snap It MMA, Mushroom. Everybody is starting to pour in. The usual Sobumin Gaucho as well, one of the members here at Pub Sports Radio. Lou in the house. What's up, everybody? Thank you all so much for hanging out this evening. It's UFC Vegas 75 fight week. That's right. Marvin Vettori takes on none other than the Killer Gorilla himself. This is going to be a fun fight week. We've got 14 fights to get through. It is a big card, and you know, it feels retro. It feels like a WEC fight night, man. It's all the little guys. We've got like 170 pounds is the biggest guy on the entire card. And then there's only like 2 or 3 of them. Everything else is like 155 and under. This is going to be a hack and slash type of fight week. Fast pace, fast action. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time on Saturday. And I think more so having a good time, we're going to have a good time breaking it down with one of your absolute favorite guests, a regular here on the show, one of Pub Sports Radio's own, none other than Uncle Wheezy himself. What's up, Wheezy?
I'm doing good, Clint. I'm fired up for this card. I've got a lot more action on this card than I've had recently this early in the week. You know, you have some weeks, Clint, where a bunch of stuff really kind of sticks out and you're like, wow, these lines are way off and I'm smashing them. And then other times where you're really non-committal and not exactly sure what you're going to do over the course of the week. That is not this kind of week for me. I'm fired up to get into it, coming off a great week last week, and I'm seeing a lot of opportunities this week. So I'm looking forward to talking it through with you, the chat, seeing where we all stand on this card and see if we can all stack cash tickets like flapjacks on this event.
I love it, Wheezy. I love it. Now, one thing that I missed last week was that you and I ended up on the same exact play. And unless I'm mistaken, you shaved some ass last week.
Yeah, man. What we do as gamblers when we're doing it right, Clint, is we're taking advantage of lines that move too much, right? Mm-hmm. And the ass shaving of the week last week was Charles do Bronx Oliveira to shave the ass of Beneil Dariush. Just for Dariush's last fight, he was plus 170 to Mateusz Gamrot. And everybody was on Gamrot. And I was saying, what the hell am I missing here? Dariush is more experienced. He's fought the way better level of competition. This guy, you know, people are talking about Gamrot's BJJ. I mean, Dariush is way better than Gamrot's. And so I didn't get, I just didn't understand it. But Dariush cashed, and I think he proved a lot of people wrong, and he made people think that he was better than he was because he fought a guy who was coming off an 11-fight winning streak. He lost to Islam Makhachev, which everybody's going to lose to Islam. And I just thought that, that line had moved way too far. Why were we getting, why was Beneil Dariush plus 170 against Mateusz Gamrot and then minus 160 against Charles do Bronx Oliveira? The line had moved too much. I made it my most confident pick of the week. I bet 1 unit on Oliveira to win inside the distance at plus 200. It cashed. And I know that you hit it as well, man. And we were both on the same side on that one.
Absolutely. And I love it, man. I love it. I felt like I was going insane. I've always said I feel more comfortable when I'm on an island, right? When everyone's echoing. See, Blake Builder was my biggest bet of the card, and everybody was just patting me on the back. Great pick, man. It's awesome going. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, it's like that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Charles do Bronx, on the other hand, I felt the same way you did. I'm like, why did I go from parlaying Mateus Gamrot to now suddenly getting plus money on a higher caliber opponent, someone who's got such offensive firepower against a slower, smaller opponent? It just didn't make sense to me, man. So Charles Oliveira saved my night. The KO prop, plus 550, Wheezy. That was the big one that I hit last week. That felt real damn good. And honestly, I just hope we get to see Islam versus do Bronx too. I want them to run that fight back.
Yeah, they're both so exciting. They're both so talented. And, it would be nice if Charles could find his way into the fight this second time, because he wasn't quite there. And we've seen that happen in the past, and it's been a long time since we had seen it. But he just didn't find his way into that fight. If he could find his way into that fight with the pressure, land a big shot early, get some respect, it could be a different outcome. But I can't wait for that rematch. I hope they make that fight.
I completely agree. I mean, those are the two guys in the division right now. And Charles, I think, proved once again that he is the guy. So I hope they run it back. I hope he makes some adjustments. Might not change the outcome. You never know. Islam might just be that damn good. But I still want to see it, Wheezy. I still want to see it. Everybody in the chat, you may have noticed, unfortunately, I'm not rocking the baby blues. We did profit at UFC 289. So I could, on a technicality, Wheezy, I could rock out the Die Hard stimulus check t-shirt and rock it today, but I bet PFL last week, and I got my ass shaved by the PFL on, I believe, Thursday night it was. I had a big parlay that all came down to Brendan Loughnane, who is a minus 750 favorite, and he got head kicked in the first round that unfortunately buried me. So for the week, I am down, and honoring the rules. I don't want to anger the gods of gambling by strutting up here and pretending like I made money. I lost money last week. The UFC streak is alive, but the MMA and overall streak is not. So we're rocking with Chase Hooper. You guys can't see him because of the microphone. There we go. We're rocking with Chase Hooper today to respect the gods of gambling and hope they bless us this week, because there's a big Bellator card coming up this week as well, Wheezy, which one's better? Is the UFC card better, or is Bellator better this week? Because that card is stacked.
Dude, I don't bet on Bellator, man. Every damn time I hear people that I know betting on Bellator, they come back to Twitter that night thinking, well, what the hell was I thinking? Yeah, every damn time. And it's like, and I'm always so proud of myself, when I see everybody posting their Bellator losses, being like, I have no Bellator winnings, but I also have no Bellator losses. And I think I'm going to keep it right at that even zero line right there. I don't want to touch that shit. Every damn time Bellator comes to town, some 600 favorite, 700 favorite winds up getting their ass shaved. Everybody's parlays lose. It's not for me.
That's fair, Wheezy. Quit while you're ahead, man. You can't ever be losing in Bellator if you're 0-0 lifetime. It's not a bad look.
Got that
All right. Man, let's get this party started. We already got 75 live viewers. The people are rolling in. Everybody, do us a favor. Throw up the bat signal. Hit YouTube, the algorithm, with a signal flare. Everybody smash that like button for me. Let them know we're live. We're competing with the NBA Finals tonight. It doesn't matter until the fourth quarter anyway. Put that shit on mute in the background. Finish up the show with us, and then you can watch the part that actually matters at the end of the night. But hit that like button for us. As always, the show is brought to you by Pub Sports Radio. Thanks to them for always rocking with us and being the sponsor. And you know what? I wasn't sure when I was going to work it in, Wheezy, but I might as well just go ahead and do it now. Some of you may have noticed the upper right-hand corner of your screen is very suspiciously, notably blank. I actually have been notified that Superbook Sports is no longer interested in having me as a brand ambassador for them. That was a bit of a hit. They cut things quickly, unfortunately. However, I do want to say how grateful I am to them for the opportunity. They were the first sports book that wanted to partner with me and work with me. For those of you who do like the sharp action report that I do with Andrew over at Superbook. I've made such a great relationship with him. We're going to keep doing shows together. Him and I are going to stay in touch. We're going to stay in contact. We'll still try to do the sharp action report and bring him on here. He's willing to still give that information to you guys because he likes what we've been doing so much. And then, frankly, it's a little bit of free advertising for them that way when they're not sponsoring me still. But my relationship with with Superbook directly apparently has come to an end at this point. So if you guys, if you got any friends out there, if you guys do know anybody that's looking for an ambassador for a book or something like that, your boy's open for business. But onward and upward from here. That's all. Yeah, Ethan saying that that's Superbook Sports loss, and that's that's kind of how we got to look at it. I want to be as respectful as possible because they did go out on a limb and sign me in the first place. We had a very good working relationship for about a year and a half. So I want things to end on a positive note. We'll take everything with a big thumbs up, a learning experience, and hopefully we'll roll it into something bigger and better moving forward. So what that means for this show, folks, is I can quote whatever lines the fuck I want. If we want to talk about same game parlays on DraftKings, if we want to find a prop that sticks out like a sore thumb on BetMGM, we can talk about any line you want. We are not restricted anymore to a single book. So that part is going to be a little bit fun. So let's get the party started. First fight of the night. We're talking none other than Modestas Bukauskas taking on Zach Pauga. And these guys are an absolute mess, Uncle Weezy. Seriously. So Modestas Bukauskas had a really rough UFC run. The first time he was in the organization, he had a bad stint and got cut from the organization, took the Cage Warriors belt, which is a pretty good feather in your cap. Most of the Cage Warriors champions tend to do pretty well in the UFC. Comes back. We get a big underdog price tag on him against Tyson Pedro. That felt good to bring that bet home. I was hesitant, Wheezy, because I was like, I want to fade Pedro, but is this the time? Because I was a little nervous about Modestas. Thank goodness we took the shot. It worked out. We cashed that big underdog ticket on him. The guy is tall. He's lanky. He's kind of he seems almost like a younger Sam Alvey to me. He's got a little bit better footwork. He does the side-to-side movement thing, but he relies on those big power shots. He's never out-voluming anybody, Wheezy. Like, there's no chance, if we're having a decision based on volume, that Modestas is winning it. He needs to steal a round or two with a big punch, a knockdown, maybe a finish. He does have a tight 1-2 right down the middle. Good side-to-side footwork. He sets traps for his opponents, kind of gets you chasing him, and then sits down on that solid power. He will have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot, but man, to quote my guy from Half the Battle, Dan Levy, he's the guy that you're always screaming to do more. Like, when you've got a Modestas ticket in your hand, you are just begging him to throw 1 or 2 more leg kicks every single round. Zach Pauga was 6-1, 1-1 in the UFC. 35 years old, so he's a bit up there for a guy just getting the ball rolling here. KO'd at heavyweight by the B-side Usman brother after the Ultimate Fighter, and then he went to a decision with Jordan Wright, which frankly is a giant red flag. I know Jordan Wright may be a little more durable up at light heavyweight, but still, the guy's the chinniest man in the UFC. You need to be able to get him out of there, but he did what he had to do to get a win. Can't really blame him for that. Lots of clinching, lots of cage pushing. He kind of overhands his way into range the way a lot of wrestlers do. And then he just sticks to you like glue. This guy's just on you from start to finish, pillar to post. Strong underhooks, good head position, pretty nasty in the clinch. He landed a couple big elbows that kind of have me a little worried that he doesn't have much power, Wheezy, because the way he landed on Jordan Wright in the clinch with some of those elbows, I kind of expected Chinny Jordan Wright to crumble. And the fact that he didn't has me questioning just how hard Zach actually hits. At any rate, he's got good cardio, good pace. He trains up at Team Elevation, so he can keep that, clinch cage push up for a 15 straight minutes. And man, I'm seeing a lot of people out there already trusting Modestas Bukauskas as a favorite here in this spot, Wheezy. Currently, you can find Modestas Bukauskas as a -190 favorite, it looks like, in this spot. And in this economy, Wheezy, -190 on Modestas Bukauskas. In this economy, I could never. Not me. Can't do it. I think I have to pick fight goes to split decision. Like, I think this is going to be a Zach Pauga fight. Modestas is going to skirt the outside. He's going to skip side to side. Zach is going to get in close and pin him up against the fence. As long as the cage door stays closed and they don't go knocking through out into the crowd like that one time, This is going to be the most low-paced, slow, boring fight in 205-pound history, Wheezy. It's dog or pass from a betting perspective for me, and that makes me sick to my stomach that I would even consider betting Zach Pauga. But I think he may actually have higher output. I think he may actually have some success, not necessarily with takedowns, but with pushing Modestas up against the fence and controlling him for a little bit. And unless Modestas finds the button and shuts the lights out on Zach, you're going to be sweating a split decision with minus 180 in your pocket on Saturday. So I can't for the life of me trust him in this spot, Wheezy. What are you doing here?
Yeah, I mean, at minus 190 for Modestas Bukauskas, let me just bring out my crystal ball and tell you Modestas Bukauskas bettors what's going to be happening. Around midway through the second round, you're going to be throwing your remote through your television, screaming, please, for the love of God, just do something. Because Bukauskas doesn't do shit. He just doesn't. And what's kind of funny is he's averaging 9.31 distance strike attempts per minute spent at distance. It's a little bit below the average for the division. But for Pauga, it's actually less than that. At distance, he's only throwing 7.8 attempts per minute. So Pauga is actually a little bit lower output than Modestas Bukauskas. But you brought up a really good point. What if Zach doesn't feel like boxing? What if he wants to use that football background of his to kind of like sneak in, get his arms around Modestas, put his back up against the cage and hold him there? And if he does that, he can win the minutes here. I don't think Zach Pauga is finishing anybody at this level. I was taking a really long look, Clint, at the over 2.5 rounds and thinking about making a big bet on it. But here's the thing that stopped me. I'm worried about Zach Pauga's chin. I don't think this dude has a chin. So TNT said it in the chat, like, what if he's secretly chinny? I don't think he's secretly chinny. That left hook that
just chinny.
that Usman, landed, was not a crazy. He didn't sit down on that punch. It was good timing. It was good precision on it, but it wasn't a power heavyweight punch. So yeah, I've seen Pauga dropped a couple of times. So yeah, I had to stay away from the over here, even though I don't think either one of these guys could finish a glass of water at this level. I still don't trust Pauga's chin. Pauga by decision. That could be a decent line. Let me look and see where that one's at right now on Bet Online Sportsbook. Because now
shout out whatever sportsbook you want, Wheezy.
Yeah, man. Bet Online Sportsbook right now is Zach Pauga by points plus 300.
Yeah,
that's not great. That's not great when he's plus 170. I don't know, man. This feels like a giant stay away. But yeah, the one thing I want to get across to everybody out there, Clint, don't lay juice on Modestas Bukauskas. Don't parlay this guy. He doesn't do enough. He's probably not going to look minus 190 against anybody in the UFC.
Yeah, that's my problem, Wheezy. I feel like this is a massive reach. It's a massive overextension of what happened last time. Holy crap. He beat Tyson Pedro. Folks, Tyson Pedro was never that good. He fought an absolute bare bones run in the UFC and finished guys that don't belong here. He was propped up maybe a little bit more than he should have been. And now everybody's thinking Modestas is the guy because he got that fight out of the way. Frankly, this is an overcorrection. This is a closer fight to a pick'em. If you're going pure value, I think Zach is the side from a betting perspective. I'm with Wheezy. I think we look over. I don't know if Pauga's chin is going to hold up, but really, Wheezy, he's only got to hold up 4 or 5 shots, right? Like, because that's all he's going to face in this fight. If you showed me a video of Modestas Bukauskas on a speed bag leading up to this fight, I'll bet him. If I know I'm getting volume from him, I'll bet him. But until I see otherwise, I'm assuming this guy is going to throw maybe 25 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes.
Dude, that Chuck Campbell fight was one of the worst. The Lee Chadwick and Chuck Campbell fights. If you're looking to tape this fight, you guys, take it from your Uncle Wheezy. You'll never get that hour of your life back because there were 5-round fights and there wasn't shit that happened in any of them. I mean, Bukauskas is so low volume, maddeningly low volume, that there's no way in hell that I would play the juice on this guy.
If you've got UFC Fight Pass, they've added a feature. You can put it on 3x speed, and it looks like a 1-round normal fight. They're so low volume, it looks like you're watching one actual round of like a flyweight UFC fight and a full 5-round title fight. So go have some fun with that. Please leave this one alone. Probably not worth your money. Probably not worth any more time. Let's move on to the next fight here, Wheezy. Ronnie Lawrence, otherwise known as Said Yakub Kakramonov's son, is making his return here at UFC Vegas 75, taking on Daniel Argueta. I love this fight, Wheezy. I love it so much. There's so many different moving parts going on here. So we haven't seen Ronnie Lawrence since he got the absolute brakes beaten off of him by my guy, Said Yakub Kakramonov, which still, I will, every opportunity I get, it's a crime that man was released by the UFC. It's cruel and unusual punishment that he finds himself on the regional scene right now. His opponent, Daniel Argueta, is the one who actually came in on short notice against Damon Jackson and lit the world on fire, because he looked like he was having some serious success against Damon Jackson up a weight class on short notice. Daniel's a solid wrestler. So 9-1, his only loss is that short notice opportunity. He's solidly built. He's got that big old thick back, really just kind of muscles his opponent around the cage. When he gets on top, he is extremely heavy. Great top pressure, active with the ground and pound. He does always tend to try to work on his opponents a little bit, so gives you something to think about. Good solid back takes. He's trying to finish. This guy does what he can to score and get the finish, not like a solid wet blanket 24/7, but he can do that when he needs to. He's got a 55% takedown defense. Can't look too far into that. It's only, the 2 fights here in the UFC. Trains at Jackson Wink. I don't like that gym anymore, Wheezy. I just really don't. I feel like they're going downhill. I feel like the fighters coming out of there have been disappointing. His opponent, though, Ronnie Lawrence, like I said, before the Said Yakub fight, though, this guy, Dana, was raving about Ronnie Lawrence. He's such a phenomenal grappler. He's got gas for days, Wheezy, like never-ending gas tank. We didn't think his gas tank could have a hole poked in it until Said Yakub flipped the switch on him, hit him with that reverse Uno card and started taking him down and making him work defensively. He usually backs his opponents up and gets people on the mat and then styles on them from top position. I think he's going to have a speed advantage here in this fight, Wheezy. And I know you're probably going to talk more about the numbers than I will, but 7.03 takedowns per 15 minutes. 7. That's an insane number. And more than that, 77% accuracy. I don't think anybody's got numbers like that. This guy shoots so many takedowns, and he hits more of them than anybody should at that pace. I think Merab is the only one who shoots upwards of 7 takedowns, and he lands at like a 50-60%. Like, these numbers are stupid. Granted, he's not fighting the highest level of competition in the world at this point yet, but that shows what he's capable of, at least. I kind of agree with Ronnie Lawrence being the favorite here, Wheezy, and I'm a little mad because he was minus 160 yesterday. I told myself I need to bet that. He's minus 190 now. I missed it. I didn't bet it. The numbers moved. He's a decent bit bigger of a favorite. And now I'm staring at it wondering if that 30 cents is enough to keep me off it. Do I parlay him now? What do I do with this number? So I definitely lean to Ronnie Lawrence to go ahead and get back on track here in this spot, just because I think with all that muscle, Daniel will slow down. He will tire out. And then in those shorter, smaller moments, Ronnie Lawrence is going to use that speed advantage to either score or reverse positions, find his way to the top. I think I like Ronnie in this fight here. Wheezy, what about you? You're on mute, my friend.
I'm a little worried about Ronnie Lawrence, right? Botched weight cuts all over the place for this guy. He's had to pull out of a couple of fights. Even in the Contender Series fight, that awesome performance against Jose Johnson, he walks by Dana White and he tells him, "I'm sorry about that. I had a horrible weight cut. You'll get a better performance next time." And then, he's one of the last guys of the scale every time he weighs in. It's always an ordeal with this guy. Argueta hasn't fought at 135 in a minute. He's been back and forth between bantamweight and featherweight here. But here's the thing about Ronnie Lawrence. There's no high school or college wrestling background. He's an MMA wrestler. And sometimes, in my opinion, I think that's even better, because instead of wrestling within the rules of the sport and trying to score points on a mat, wearing shoes and a singlet and headgear, that's different than what you're going to do in a cage in order to use wrestling to win minutes. So I think it's good when guys necessarily don't have that wrestling background, but they want to wrestle because they have good conditioning, because they can scramble, because they're in great shape. They can use that wrestling like Lawrence has. 15 of 18 on takedowns in his UFC fights, 83.33%, 5.28 per 15 minutes, 6.33 attempts. And that's not including the Jose Johnson fight on the Contender Series. So, but Dan Argueta actually does have a high school and college wrestling background. I mean, I believe he was a state champion in Illinois. He's a South Side of Chicago guy here. Dan Argueta from Orland Park, Illinois. Orland Park, stand up. Got some friends from over there, some fraternity brothers from there. So he's actually probably going to be the better wrestler here. And that's something that I think people need to get through their heads, is that Ronnie Lawrence doesn't have a wrestling background. And when he fought a wrestler in Kakhramonov, it became clear very quickly who was the wrestler, and not the cardio guy. And I think that this is going to be the same thing here. Argueta pressures on the feet. He throws big bombs. He kind of finds his way into those takedowns by pressuring and throwing with a lot of power. And then he can fall in on your hips and get takedowns. Man, I think that this fight's going to play out really close. And I got a real sneaking suspicion that it doesn't even happen, because I don't know if Ronnie Lawrence is cut out to make 136 pounds twice a year over the next 4 years. In order to be consistent in this sport, you've got to fight more than once a year. You have to be able to make weight without literally killing yourself. And it looks like this Lawrence kid kills himself to make weight every time. So I just need to see more. I need to see more. The Leo Mano Martinez win means nothing to me. I've never had a good opinion of Mano Martinez. The Cachero win doesn't mean much. The fact that he out-wrestled Jose Johnson, it doesn't mean much to me. But I still think that Lawrence has fought really good competition on the regional scene. I think his boxing is great. His conditioning is great. And I think that he's good everywhere the fight goes. I'm just worried that he's going to be like the Maverick Jazz Davicius fight last week. I just have a feeling that it's going to be Argueta that's the guy that's deciding whose back hits the mat here.
Okay. All right. So a little bit of disagreement between me and Wheezy here. And I'll be honest with you, very convincing, Wheezy, to try and kind of get me over on that dog side of things, because those are all fair points. Those are all very, very fair points. And his competition in the UFC, notwithstanding Said Yakub Kakhramonov, has been relatively weak. And we did see Daniel all the way up at a different weight class, not having too much trouble moving a bigger body around. Somebody's bigger, larger, physically stronger. Maybe I'm just going to sit tight here. Let's see where this number goes. Let's see what the kid looks like Friday on the scales, and then we'll kind of take it from there. I do have to apologize to you guys in the chat. I'm not sure what has happened here to my StreamYard, but we've got an issue. I'm no longer getting comments for some reason. So I actually pulled up another tab here. I've got our own stream open in another tab so I can read out some of these comments to you guys. But I do apologize. It's going to be a little less interactive tonight, apparently, than it normally is, because for whatever reason, StreamYard just isn't sending me the comments, so I can't highlight you and bring you up on the screen. Billy Briz in the house, one of the Pub Sports radio personalities here, a phenomenal MMA bettor, saying, I see the value of the dog in Argueta. Wrestling is good. And that's yet another endorsement there for that underdog side, of an opinion that I very, very much respect. Stubborn Mick saying that Argueta at plus 160 is too much, have to consider it. And I agree. That's definitely fair. We got MMA Jesus in the house. What's up, my dude? Thank you very much for coming and blessing this fight breakdown here this evening. We've got Dixon Sider saying, Wheezy, should we expect regression to the mean for Lawrence takedowns?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, you usually do expect to see that, but that all depends on the opponent. I mean, if you're going to go out there and you're going to keep giving Ronnie Lawrence guys that can't wrestle, and his path to victory is going to be using that conditioning and that pace in order to push a wrestling heavy game plan so that he can win, he would see that. But, I don't think he's going to be getting a lot of takedowns here against Argueta. Argueta can wrestle, man. So yeah, I would expect to see that number come down. I mean, the average number for takedowns in this division is 1.55, Clint. 1.55 takedowns per 15 minutes is the average for the bantamweight division. I've accumulated all of these stats. I have literally in my database every single fight that has taken place between January 1st, 2013 to now. I have it sorted by weight class, and I have divisional averages for every single weight class, so we can determine, whether a fighter is above or below average in any particular stat for their division. And that's what that new matchup template that I've created now has. So we can know who's above average, who's below average in every single stat that's available.
That is awesome. That is really awesome. All right, we've got any action. Effie saying I took a shot on Ronnie. Dix Insider asking, round 3 TKO on Argueta sprinkle. I don't think so, just because this kid is primarily a wrestler. And while Ronnie Lawrence, we've got questions about him at this point, right? I massively respect the abilities and skills of Said Yakub Kakramanov. If he couldn't get him out of there in that fight, I don't know that I'm going to trust this guy to be the one that gets him out of there. He's tough. Maybe he loses the fight, but he's tough. I don't know that he's going to get finished. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and move on to the next fight here. If you haven't already, do me a favor and smash that like button. Tereza Bledá takes on Gabriella Fernandes in an absolutely hideous, ugly women's MMA fight, Uncle Weezy. This is straight up torture here, looking at this fight. This is so low level. Tereza Bledá is a huge favorite in this spot. Let me look for a number here to go ahead and quote you. I believe a minus 225 favorite. 275 now. Tereza Bledá is a minus 275 favorite. Her opponent, Gabriella, plus 220. And I'll be honest with you, Weezy. Geez, I'm mixing up my terms here. Uncle Weezy, this fight seems very, very easy to me, because what we saw in the debuts of these women is that Tereza Bledá is a Jasmine Judavicius type, right? She is big, she is strong, she is bullying. And if she can work the grappling, if she can take you down, if she can put you on your back, then you're in trouble. She will absolutely maul you from that position. She will be stronger than you. She will ride that spot. She'll hold you down. She's good to go if she can get the grappling working. She is 6-1, and her only loss comes from none other than our girl, Natalia Silva, in her UFC debut. So I don't know exactly what to make of her. I know I like her ground and pound, Weezy. She is deadly from top position. She is vicious with the way that she grounds and pounds her opponent, and she'll have a 5-inch reach advantage in this spot. The reason I feel like it's an easy breakdown is that Gabriella, at 29 years old, is big and physical, and she's a dangerous striker. She's got rare power for women's MMA with her size and the way she cracks on the feet. She showed absolutely no ability to defend a takedown in her UFC debut. None whatsoever. And then once she got on the ground, she showed a complete lack of grappling knowledge. Her shoulders were flat on the canvas. She was not defending. Her guard got past relatively easily. This is all by Jasmine Jasudavicius, who you guys know I do not have a very high opinion of, and frankly am kicking myself for calling the upset last week and then not putting a penny on Jasudavicius against Miranda Maverick, who's been the one I've been trying to fade for so long. I missed my opportunity, Weezy, and I'm extremely upset that I called that upset and then never found my balls to actually get to the window and make a play. But if Jazz is doing those things to you on the ground, I think you're going to have a tough time in the UFC. So Tereza Bledá may just be able to repeat that performance. It's been 2 months since that fight with Jazz. I can't think her grappling will have improved all that much. I do think we're going to find violence in this fight. I think that Tereza Bledá will have more activity on the ground and pound. I think there's an opportunity for her to finish this fight where Jasmine Jasudavicius did not. And then when you do get on the feet, you've got someone who hits like a truck in Gabriella Fernandes. So if she's got the opportunity to, she will crack against Tereza Bledá. So Billy Brisbane shouting out, any love for the under? Yes, my friend. Love for the under here in this women's MMA fight. I need to see a number, but I do think that's probably a decent look here in this spot. Weezy, I got to pick Tereza Bledá. I got to go with the favorite here in this spot, simply for that grappling abuse advantage that I'm perceiving we're going to have. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said, and I already bet the under. And I was really surprised, Clint, because when I see a fight like this, right, where when it's on the ground, Bledá is going to be very dangerous and live to catch a submission. She's good, man. She's only 21 years old. She's been fighting since she was 15. And she's in there with Magdalena Sormova, with Lucy Pudilova when she's 18 years old, beating them. beating them in octagon. Undefeated coming to the UFC, and then she loses to Natalia Silva, but she won that first round. You know, she's good, dude. Tereza Bledá is good. And like you said, when Gabriella is on the feet, man, she is good. She's got power. She's a southpaw, so when she throws that kick to the body, if it touches your liver, you're done. She's got good knees. She's got good straight punches right down the pipe. So when I see a striker versus grappler matchup, I start looking for, unders, because I know that no matter where the fight goes, one of the two people is going to be dangerous and going to be able to finish the fight. So I wasn't expecting to see for this fight the under being placed at plus 200, which is a 33% implied probability when 35.39% of women's flyweight fights go under 2.5 rounds. So why are we getting a discount when Bledá is going to be live for a sub and Fernandes is going to be live for a KO? In addition to that, on Bet Online Sportsbook,
I need totals, Weezy. I need totals much faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've that's what they've got on Bet Online is that plus. I think it moved to plus 195, but they opened up the Gabriella Fernandes KO at plus 1,400. In my opinion, that's like 90% of her win condition in this spot, right? She's not going to take down Tereza Bledá, and I don't think she's stopping the takedowns. And we know that Tereza Bledá is not going to come out there and like willingly stay on the feet with Gabby. She's going to be shooting that first takedown 10 seconds into this fight and probably is going to leave very little time for Gabby to be able to find that shot. But because she's going to be on her back for as much of this fight, I kind of feel like Fernandes has to get a knockout in order to win this fight. The implied probability of her to win this right now is about 30% on the money line, but at plus 1,400, they're telling you the KO probability is 6%. So I took a shot at that. If she's got a 30% chance to win according to the money line, I'll take her by KO at plus 6%, knowing that that's pretty much her path to victory here.
I like it, Weezy. I like it. I like it a lot. I think fight has a very good shot of ending by knockout either way due to the ground and pound and then due to the power on the feet from Gabriella. And I really like that plus 195 on the under. I hope that number still exists in some form or capacity where I can get to it. I might need to open up a Bet Online account sooner than later.
They're always first to market with those overs and unders, and so it's a great book to have when you're concentrated on that. When I created my prop template to identify value in those betting markets, I started doing all my over under betting pretty much at Bet Online.
I like it. I'm going to have to look into that. MMA Jesus saying that Bledá is a lock. Your Mad is saying Fernando's no ground game or no get up. Bledá should finish. Mushroom saying if you French fry when you're supposed to pizza, you're going to have a bad time. And I couldn't agree with that statement more. I could not agree with that more. All right, everybody. I think we like that fight. We found a good spot to bet on that one. We'll see if we can get some lines sooner than later. Next up, we have got none other than the man himself making his glorious return here to the UFC. Zhalgas Zhumagulov is welcoming Felipe Bunes, I believe. Bunes? I'm not sure how you pronounce that last name, Weezy.
Bunes, I think.
Bunes. Okay, Bunes. Felipe Bunes. This fight has me just a little bit confused. So, folks, we have broken down our guy, Zhalgas Zhumagulov, forwards and backwards a million times at this point. I'm shocked he still has a job. Now, he went full sell and had the Paddy Pimblett haircut, went viral. That probably got him one or two more fights on his contract making that move. You love to see him get extended there for making moves like that. But even with the egregious, potentially awful split decisions going against him, the man still is 1-5 over the course of his UFC run. So there's kind of no getting around that. Now, granted, we all feel like Julian Paiva, he absolutely was robbed in that fight. The Jeff Molina and Charles Johnson fights, both were splits that easily could have been the other direction. So it's really only Manel Kopp and Amir Albazi who have put this guy really away. He fights close with everybody, Weezy. He's good at everything. He's got decent cardio. He's got decent pace. He's got decent wrestling. He's got a good, solid understanding of submissions, decent finishing ability, and decent finishing instincts when his opponents are hurt to try and get that win. So he's a guy that you're going to put in there with basically anybody, and he's a solid measuring stick. His opponent is brand new to the UFC, trains with the Pitbull brothers, and honestly, I'm a little confused about this guy. And this is where, I know it's not, Friday, but the tinfoil hat's got to come on. Somebody's got to know something here in this spot, Weezy. Somebody's got to know something here, because I don't know why Felipe is getting this opportunity. I really don't. So usually when you get these prospects, they're 9-1, 8-0, 10-2. We're looking for hot, young, up-and-coming talent here that the UFC believes is going to make waves, make some moves here in the UFC. This guy went on a 3-fight losing skid and then got back on track against a 20-8 fighter, a 13-9 fighter, and a 10-5 fighter. So he beat 3 absolute cans, right in the middle of which he was choked out by UFC dropout Jussier Formiga. Now, Weezy, I don't want to besmirch the name of Jussier Formiga, because that man is an absolute beast. I love Jussier Formiga. I liked him in the UFC. He's obviously got a next level grappling game. So some, regional kid hopeful to the UFC getting beaten by Jussier Formiga, that's not much of a reach. That's not much of a surprise for me. I can kind of forgive him for that loss. But at the same time, we're talking about a 3-4 in your last 7 record, and they're bringing this kid to the cage. I'm not sure why. He's 33 years old. He's not even a prospect. He's not 27 with a rough skid. He's not still evolving and giving these types of losses up because he's got a higher ceiling. This is probably the finished product here, Felipe. So I'm extremely, extremely confused. I'm very tempted to hold my nose and play Zhalgas Zhumagulov in this spot, Weezy. I never like betting Zhalgas Zhumagulov because, frankly, like I said, he always finds himself in close fights, and you're risking a split decision every time you do it. Felipe might just have those kinds of, speed advantages to be the difference maker. If Zhalgas has a hard time closing the space and the range, he can potentially give away another close decision. Felipe does like to work the body. He does like his big spinning kicks. He does have an opportunistic submission game. So don't get me wrong, like, the kid's got a path to victory, and I kind of want to take him just based on the fact that somebody somewhere thinks he belongs in the UFC, and Zhalgas seems to be that entry-level fight that gets you your first win in the organization. -165 for Zhalgas, +140 for Felipe. I want to take the Zhalgas money line. The tinfoil cap wants to take the +140 on Felipe. What are you doing, Weezy?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight, right? You see that this guy has lost 4 of his last 7, and you're like, wow, but then you look a little bit deeper, and it's a 7-0 Mansour Katiev, an 8-0 Murad Magomedov, and a 10-1 Imran Bukayev that he loses to an ACA, right? So he's fighting some Russian crotch sniffers, that'll go out there and wrestle the shit out of you. And a guy like Bunes is going to let him do that because he wants to be in that BJJ. He wants to be hunting for submissions. And these guys are masters of staying out of those submissions. Interesting fact about the Formiga fight, right? So Formiga is out of the UFC. He's going to make his debut in LFA, and he gets his debut against Felipe Bunes, 125-pound fight. About 48 hours before the fight, Jussier shows up, and he says, I'm not going to fight at 125. Let's make this one at 135. And then he weighs in at 139.5. Okay. So
He
Bunes,
went full Costa, huh?
Yeah. So Bunes, is like thinking that this is a flyweight fight. And then they tell him, the day before weigh-in, stop cutting weight. Formiga won't take the fight at 125. So he gets forced up a weight class. Then Formiga comes in 3.5 pounds heavy. So, it was what it was there. But Formiga's, an elite submission grappler, and he got to his back and choked him out. But this guy's kind of dangerous, man, this Bunes guy.
Yeah.
When you're really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like Bunes is, you can just be a prick on the feet. You could throw spinning shit, head kicks, flying knees, cartwheel kick, because you don't care if you get taken down. And so he's kind of dangerous at range because he's throwing with power. He's throwing spinning shit, and he's kind of long and big for the division too. So, and then if he gets taken down, and Zhalgas will take you down, he's going to be threatening with knee bars and triangles and arm bars and all this shit. Zhalgas should be able to get through it, but I don't know, man. I mean, this guy Bunes is dangerous. And like I say, yeah, the record doesn't look great, but I mean, those three guys that beat him in ACA were combined 25-1. It's not like this guy's losing to guys that wouldn't be okay at the UFC level. They would be. They don't like having a lot of those Russians in the UFC because they don't have really exciting fight styles. But a guy like Bunes will let you take him down and play jiu-jitsu off his back. And if he doesn't get the sub, you're going to beat him by decision. So it's an interesting fight, but he's got a little bit of spark in him. So we'll have to see. Zhalgas is not a guy that you're going to go out there and finish easily. So I kind of feel like Zhalgas by decision is the way to go here. But I mean, I've watched the tape on both of these guys, and I'm not seeing an angle here. I'm not seeing a betting angle.
Do we just auto bet Zhalgas split decision props at this point, Wheezy? Are we there yet?
I mean, we might be there yet. Yeah. I mean, we could certainly be there, especially against a guy like this that could wind up getting your back and winning a round easily.
Or laying on his back for 7 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it could be a very close fight. Zhalgas fights close with a lot of people. Prior to the UFC, in the UFC, he's in close fights. So yeah, the split decision prop is not an ignorant bet by any stretch of the imagination in any Zhalgas-Zhumagulov fight.
Okay. Well, I definitely think that's the way I'm going to look here. Probably split decision prop. If anything, this is a sketchy fight, Wheezy. Of all the sketchy fights on this card, it's got Zhalgas involved in it and what could be a close fight. Be careful on this one, folks. Brian Lockhart saying he likes Zhumagulov here. Dirty Reg ZZ for me. We got my guy MMA Locker Room in the chat. Yeah, thank you for the shout out there that he's with the Pitbull Bros. We've got Real Deal Prime in the house. What's up, buddy? Definitely appreciate you popping in here. He's on the other side of Pub Sports Radio, sweating the NBA. That's okay. I'll forgive you tonight. It's potentially the last game of the series. That makes sense. Just come back and watch the replay when you're done. All right. What's up, everybody? Jay saying, oi, we got some boys in the house. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're already up over 100 live viewers here for the show, and we are working our way through this dang thing, man. Next fight up, we have got Wheezy. We talked ever so briefly backstage about this one. Carlos Hernandez taking on Denise Bondar, and I'm pissed, Wheezy. I'm pissed. I hesitated, and it cost me. Denise Bondar was ever so slightly the underdog in this fight to Carlos Hernandez, plus 110, plus 105, something like that. And again, much like my first lean that we talked about a minute ago, I said, you know what? I should probably take that. I think he should be the favorite. I think Denise Bondar should be the favorite. Lo and behold, podcast time rolls around, and he is. He's minus 125. He is now the favorite in this matchup. And that just makes so much sense to me after running the tape. Frankly, Wheezy, I am not impressed with Carlos Hernandez. He's 8-2, 1-1 off of Dana White's Contender Series, and both his UFC win and his Dana White's Contender Series fight were by split decision. His loss, however, was a round one rear naked choke loss. So he got absolutely handled by Altamirano. This guy has no power whatsoever. He's a Tony Ferguson prototype, right? Like, he has speed, he has pace, death by 1,000 cuts. He has no KO wins or losses. He's tough, he's relatively durable, but he has his bread and butter on the ground. Solid submission grappler, 4 wins by sub on the mat. You got to give him at least a little bit of credit there, but it's opportunistic. You know what I mean? He does most of his work, high volume, on the feet. Denise Bondar, 16-4, so he's got a lot more experience than his opponent. He is 0-1 in the UFC, being tapped out by Malcolm Gordon. And I know that right there, people, I can hear you cringe through the screen. People at your keyboards, when I say he got tapped out by Malcolm Gordon, you're going, oh God. But if you look at that fight, Wheezy, if you watch that fight, not if you look at the tapology, if you're not wiki capping this fight, go back, run it back, you'll see what actually happened. He posted on his hand and his elbow snapped out of joint. So this was not your average finish. Now, he was getting, whizzer kicked by Malcolm Gordon. So he had taken a shot. He got rocked by Malcolm early. Malcolm's a glass cannon. I've never doubted that man's offensive capabilities. It's his defensive capabilities that's really the problem. So young kid, UFC debut, gets hurt by a guy that's supposed to be a layup, and then has a freak accident injury that actually gets him out of there. I wanted to see the rest of that fight, Wheezy. I wanted to see what he did. I wanted to see him work his way back into it. I wanted to see him face a little bit of adversity and then see if he could actually pull the win out when we've got a guy like Gordon who does tend to fade deeper in the fight. Denise Bondar is light on his feet. He plays a little bit with his hands too low sometimes, but he's got a real quick, snappy jab. He does hang out in the pocket right in front of his opponents, and someone like Gordon made him pay for that a little bit. This guy's got nice timing on his level changes, though, Wheezy. He does seem to time very, very well when his opponents kind of overreach a little bit. He fights really well in the clinch, big knees, shoulder strikes. He's got good elbows. He also has these nice little foot sweeps that we've seen him hit, like when his opponents are up against the cage and stuff like that. More than one way to get the fight down to the ground. This one's pretty easy for me, Wheezy. Denise Bondar is a wrestler. You've got Carlos Hernandez, who's a grappler. Usually, the grappler will accept that bottom position, fall to their back, and they'll play jiu-jitsu there. The wrestler will be on top, which generally means, unless they're getting elbowed to death, they're going to be winning that position. He's also very active with his ground and pound. Good flowing top position. Not in the UFC, but you watch some of his regional tape. He gets on top of these guys, and there's just nowhere for them to go. He beats them up. He flows around. He takes the back. He does that, the wrestling ride where they seat belt them and then pound them a little bit. 2-inch reach advantage. I like everything about Bondar here in this spot, Wheezy. I think he's going to be able to match Carlos, at least on the feet. Maybe he'll be on a little bit on the lower volume side, but he's obviously going to hit harder. And then I think he's going to score with takedowns and control on the mat. So I'm probably still going to find value at minus 125, 130 on Denise Bondar. I think he wins this fight.
I think this Bondar is a complete fraud. I think he's a complete fraud, Clint. Look, the wins, right? The wins. Kenan Jafarli, Lev Ambartsumyan, right? He beat Lev Ambartsumyan twice. He beat somebody named Gennady Gitlin twice. The rematch that nobody asked for. This guy does not have one win over an actual MMA fighter that would ever sniff the UFC cage. He's pulled out of his last 3 fights. Odie Osborne, February of 2021, Bondar withdrew. Victor Rodriguez, a free win. Bondar injury, pulled out of that fight. Malcolm Gordon on 11/20, bout rescheduled due to a botched weight cut. Then he fights Malcolm Gordon, and he loses in 82 seconds to Malcolm Gordon, and then once again pulls out of another fight a year later with another withdrawal. He can't get to the cage. He can't stay healthy. The guys that he's beaten, I would fucking put their head through a wall. Okay. And I'm really worried that this guy is not UFC level at all, and that there's nothing on his tape that really tells us anything. So what if you could beat Lev Ambartsumyan and you beat him twice? I mean, is there nobody else in the Ukraine willing to fight this guy? And then Hernandez, right? Now Carlos Hernandez has a win over Brandon Olivas, my friend. Did you know that?
I did not. I missed that. Our guy, Brandon Olivas. So Brandon talked about this kid, and he's like, dude, he's legit. Brandon said, this guy's a good fighter. He's good everywhere. The striking is solid. And Brandon was complimenting his grappling. And we know that Brandon's a black belt. The dude's a legit, grappler, competing in the worlds and stuff like that. Grappler before MMA fighter, yeah.
Exactly. He's been in there with Trevor Wells in the LFC, Daniel Perez, Victor Altamirano. He got subbed by Alan Nascimento, but Nascimento is a 25-fight veteran, right?
Yeah. Big too. Big guy.
Yeah. And look, dude, this guy's been an amateur for 4 years. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-2 amateur record. And he's probably beating better amateurs than this guy Bondar fought as professionals. And I'm not even joking about that. He's got to win over Olivas. Olivas would body bag anybody that this guy Bondar is beaten. So he's got to win over Charles Johnson as an amateur. This is a levels thing. I at least have some evidence to suggest that Carlos Hernandez can hang with UFC level fighters. We've never seen Dennis Bondar do that. Now, to go into what you said, Clint, if you go and you watch the tape of him kicking the shit out of these cab drivers, he looks good. The striking looks good. Like, he looks good technically. He's throwing with power, heavy low leg kicks. Like you said, good takedowns. And when he gets on top, he stays there. But I just don't know what any of it means. I don't know what any of it means. I do know what a good 15-minute back and forth match with Victor Altamirano means. Victor Altamirano just cashed me a 2-unit bet up against another guy that I thought was a fraud, and that was Vinicius Salvador, a guy who his last 3 wins coming into the UFC with a guy with 21 professional fights were against guys who were 0-0 and never fought again. And this is the exact kind of background that this guy Bondar has. And now he's pulled out of his last 4 fights. I think he's a complete fraud. I mean, I'm trying to resist the urge to back up the truck and put a massive bet on Carlos Hernandez, because at least I know that he's a professional fighter. Valley Flow Striking in Chicago, stand up. He's got good training partners. This guy's out there with Bully B, I mean, come on, man. I think that he's better than this guy, and I think we have more evidence to suggest that that's the case. And at plus money, I'm going to be getting to a bet on Hernandez. I just don't know how big it's going to be.
Weezy, you make a lot of really good points. And frankly, I did not look deep enough into this fight. So for those of you who watch this show and pray for one of my guests to come on and, put me in my place. Speaking of, shout out Brandon Olivas. He's usually the guy that pulls that move. Weezy just straight up doing the damn thing for you right here. We've gotten plenty of agreement already on the show. And, I'm very much being talked into what you're saying here, Uncle Weezy, because I'm seeing some of the things that you're saying. And frankly, looking back, you said something that triggered like a little memory here in my brain for me. I actually was really high on Victor Altamirano, and I bet him against Tim Elliott, and I bet him against Vinicius Salvador. And I bet him against Carlos Hernandez. And that's because I had identified, I felt that Carlos Hernandez was the fraud of the two. And I thought that he was going to be the better of the two fighters. And the fact that they scrapped back and forth the way that they did, and this is actually the guy that got his hand raised at the end of it, I think I actually need to kind of hit the reset button on what I think of Carlos Hernandez. There's something that we don't talk a whole lot about when it comes to gambling here, especially on this channel, Weezy. My guy, Jimmy the Bag, my gambling mentor, the guy that hosts the main betting stuff here on Pub Sports Radio, daily shows, which, by the way, if you guys are doing baseball, basketball, make sure you tune into those shows because they are awesome. He talks about biases a lot in gambling. And I talk about recency bias. That's my favorite one, especially in women's MMA. It's the easiest, most biased thing that we have to work with is a woman who you think sucks wins one fight, Tereza Bledá. Now she's a 3-1 favorite over somebody. It swings so hard. But one of the other biases is your own vividness bias, the way that you remember something, the way that you think of something in your own brain. And I'm absolutely somebody who falls into that pit sometimes. And I think that's what's happening here with Carlos Hernandez. I kind of just stuck a label of this guy sucks right on his forehead. And that's stuck with me ever since I made that decision. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, sit back. I'm going to spend a little bit more time looking on this fight, Weezy, because I think you might be right. I need to go back and rerun the tape on Carlos Hernandez. I need to watch a bit further back than I did leading up into this fight. And then we'll see if I change my opinion here. We'll see if I end up on you on the dog side of things. But we have, by the way, we've maxed out on Brandon Olivas compliments on this show, Weezy. I can't
Fair enough.
I can't stomach us just continuing to suck the guy off when he's not even on the podcast. So, we gotta pump the brakes. In fact, I may have to get like
we'll say Hernandez beat some millionaire candy ass on the regional scene, and we'll leave it at that, right?
It doesn't get much softer than that, Weezy. Guy's got $1 million in the bank. He wasn't even getting up for that smoker.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. But, that's the thing, something that plays into my capping a lot is, how much information do we have? And frankly, we've got so much more information about Hernandez as a professional fighter at this level than we do about Bondar. And that's enough for me right there to just say at plus 105, I mean, I think that's a good bet. And I'm going to be on it in one way or another, but it looks like there's a lot of Bondar love out there. People that I respect are saying they think that this guy's better than Hernandez. So I'm going to wait and see where this line goes.
Yeah, I don't mind it. At this point, Wheezy, I don't mind straight up passing because I thought that I was going to bet Denise Bondar as a dog. I missed that opportunity. You're making sense to me. I need to look into it further. If I do my research and then I come back and I think, yeah, Bondar is still the side and he's minus 160 or something like that, then I just missed my window. Shit happens. I'll move on. We've got other opportunities coming up. Daz does say to go ahead and pump the brakes. And Mike, I wanted to highlight your comment, man. Bootsy is barking. So the dog absolutely has an opinion here on this fight. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and get going. We got some more awesome MMA action to talk to you about. Next up, we've got Kyung Kang taking on Cristian Quiñonez. And I'll be honest with you, Wheezy, I forgot all about Cristian. Completely forgot about Cristian. And that is sad. That's something I should not have done because Cristian Quiñonez, I can't say that last name for the life of me, dear God. Cristian Quiñonez is the first man to ever knock out Khalid Taha. And I should remember that night, Wheezy. I should remember that night because I backed the dump truck up on Khalid and I was extremely upset because it was a bit of an early stoppage. Khalid's been incredibly durable. Like that's his thing, is how stupid durable that guy is. The size of his head is unreal. And he got hurt. He got rocked. Cristian hit him with a big old follow-up. And the referee kind of dove in while he was still like mid-roll defending himself and waved it off. He rolled over. His eyes were clear. He kind of was like, what are you doing? Like, because he was fine. He really was okay. But that doesn't change the fact that the way Cristian was cracking him, the way he followed up on that shot, the accuracy, the speed of his punches, a lesser man would have been unconscious. So we need to go ahead and give him credit where it's due, that he's more than capable of knocking somebody out in that situation. In fact, he has got 10 KO victories on his record. So like I said, a lesser man with a smaller head probably would have been unconscious in that spot. I'll go ahead and feel okay crediting him with that knockout. Kyung Kang, Mr. Perfect himself, really weird to get a feel for this guy. 18-9. So he's kind of been around forever. He's 35 years old. And he's a discount GSP, Wheezy. This is one of those guys that finds the chink in the armor. He finds that little tiny sliver of what you can't do. And that's how he wins his fights. He just exposes that one little thing. I was big on Dana Bakary in that last fight. And Mr. Perfect made me look foolish because he figured out that Dana couldn't find his way around a jab. He busted Dana's face up for 15 straight minutes, doing nothing but moving his feet and sticking a jab out there every time Dana tried to explode into range. One of the most embarrassing bets of my life because I sold on that one, Wheezy. I was all in on Dana Bakary. But then you go back one more fight and old man Ronnie Yaya was able to take him down and out wrestle him. Like, he's got 5 split decisions over the course of his UFC run, I think. No, I'm over exaggerating. 4. He's got 4 split decisions in the UFC. He's another one of these guys who fights incredibly close with his opposition. And because of that, I can't stomach ever laying a price on Kyung Kang. Now, here he is as an underdog in this spot. I talked about recency bias, Wheezy, especially with these Dana White's Contender Series fighters. That's more often than not where we find it. They get to the UFC. We're already usually overestimating them by, just a smidge. And then they get to the big show and they have a big performance like Cristian did. And everyone goes, oh, baby, this guy's going to get a belt. This guy's going to fight for a title. Like, that's just every time they want to rush these Contender Series kids straight up the ladder. So now you've got Cristian, a minus 175 favorite here. And I kind of agree with it. What the UFC is doing with Mexico right now. This kid's, born in Tijuana. He's obviously got slick hands. He's very fast. He hits hard. He's 27 years old. But man, Kyung Kang always makes his fights close. Out of all of his losses, he's only ever been knocked out once, Wheezy. And that's the kind of thing that bothers me here in this spot is you've got one of these exciting front load, heavy, power punching required type of fighters. And his path to victory is going to be knocking out Kyung Kang. Well, only one guy's ever done it, and it was via soccer kick back in 2018. So I don't know that even with his very quick and accurate hands, he's going to be able to knock out a guy like Kyung Ho Kang. I might bet an over, Wheezy. I might bet an over here because Kyung does the thing where if he can out wrestle you, he takes you down. And if he has a hard time with your power, he's really defensively sound. And if he can jab you to death and defend that way, that's what he does. I think he'll slow the pace of this fight down. And I think Cristian's going to have a hard time finishing him. So frankly, I think over might be the way that I would look here in this spot, even though they're both incredibly dangerous, offensively gifted fighters. Pucker up that butthole, baby. I think we're going to fade that narrative and look over instead of looking under. But picking a winner, picking who gets their hand raised, I think I got to go with Cristian. Let's go Mexico. But I don't like that price tag, Wheezy. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a bit steep, but god damn that performance by Quiñonez last time against Taha. Wow. I mean, he styled on that dude, man.
He did.
He absolutely styled on him. I was shocked, how easy he made that look, because that was something that he was maintaining range so beautifully there. And I don't even know if Taha hit him once. It was so clean. But here's the thing, right? Taha a lot smaller than Quiñonez, and we saw Quiñonez, he fights really well long. Great straight jab, kicks, and he manages distance really well. So, but in this case, he's going to be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage against Kyung Ho Kang. He's going to be 1 inch shorter than Kyung Ho Kang. So it might not be as easy for him to maintain range against Kang as it was in the Taha fight. In addition to that, when I look at my stats, right, and now that I've got this new matchup template that's not only just reading off the stats, but it's telling you whether somebody is above or below average for their division. You look and you see a bunch of green on the page for Kyung Ho Kang, right? 11 UFC fights. Let me run down some of these stats that he's put up in these 11 fights. He's got 19 of 34 takedowns. He's getting his takedowns at a 56% clip, averaging 2 per 15 minutes. 70% takedown defense. He outcontrols his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio. 37% control time for, 20% control time against. So he spends over half of his fight in control time positions, and he's winning about 65% of them. And then you look at the striking. He lands more than he absorbs at distance. He's got 43% accuracy, which is above average. He's got 64% striking defense at distance, which is above average. He throws more volume than the average. He lands more volume than the average. And he's above average in every single grappling stat. Sub attempts per 15 minutes, reverses per 15 minutes, takedowns per 15 minutes, takedowns allowed per 15 minutes. His defensive numbers are all above average. And it's like you said, you broke it down perfectly. Whatever it is that you don't do well, Kyung Ho Kang's going to find it, and he's going to exploit it. So I think we have a little bit more to find out about Quiñonez here. And if we have more to find out, if there's some missing information, I'm not going to lay the juice. But man, was I impressed with him, though. The fighting pride of Zacatecas, Mexico. Little brother of Jose Teco Quiñonez. This kid, Cristian, turned pro at the age of 17, Clint. He was in his brother's corner like 8 years ago. He's grown up in a fighting family. He knows what it's like to be a UFC fighter at the highest level. Even though this kid is 8.5 years younger than Kyung Ho Kang, he's got 21 fights.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, he's 18-3, So, I like this kid. I like it. I like him a lot. I love his striking. I love his toughness. I see why he's the favorite. But also, if you're one of these guys that likes taking these plus money bets, there's a lot of reasons to like Kyung Ho Kang here. If there's a weakness, he'll probably find it. He's more experienced at the UFC level. He's fought the better brand of competition. He's definitely going to be the better wrestler and submission grappler here. So there are paths, man. If I had to bet the money line in this, I would probably take the plus money on Ho Kang. But I think I'm going to stay away from this one, man.
What's Kang by decision, Wheezy? Do you have that prop out yet anywhere?
I can find that right now for us because that's not a bad look because Kyung Ho Kang, not really a finisher, and 9 of his 11 UFC fights have went over 2.5 rounds. Kyung Ho Kang by decision is plus 225.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all. But here's the thing: Quiñonez has been finished in all 3 of his losses. I find that very interesting. You know, and Kyung Ho Kang is, you know, he's finished 3 of his 7 wins, but he's getting submissions. You know, he's not knocking dudes out. So very interesting fight.
Interesting. All right. Shout out to our guy Danny Betts in the chat. What's up, my guy? Let's see. TNT saying he likes Kong. Mark is saying Clinton Wheezy MMA analysis. My D is hard. I see 2 Oliveira backers and Kings. That's what's up, Mark. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Dixon Sider says, is Kang going to wrestle here? Potentially. We'll see. I think Kang's one of those guys where, like I said, if he hits a takedown, he'll go back to it. If he can't hit the takedown, then he probably jab sticks and moves. It's not the Urbina spot though, Dixon. I'll tell you that much. It is not the Urbina spot. That was a very rare spot. And that's not quite what this was. Mark saying Cristian Quiñonez is by far the better Quiñonez brother. Dude is really good. So hopefully we get to see more of him in the future. All right. I think we broke that one down about as well as we could, Wheezy. Very, very interesting fight. I'm going to have to simmer on that one too, because usually, you know what happens, Wheezy, is when I like a dog or pass type of spot, but I'm like, I'm too scared to take the favorite. That dog is extremely live, fights well, and a lot of times comes through, and I miss my opportunity because I didn't sack up and I didn't trust my balls. And you got to trust your balls, Wheezy. You have to trust your balls. So we'll see if I can ride with Kyung Ho Kang. Maybe Kang by split is the move, Wheezy. Maybe we just go that route.
I don't mind that at all, man. I mean, I think he's absolutely live in this spot, and we're going to find out a lot more about Cristian Quiñonez in that fight.
We are. We absolutely are. All right, everybody. Next fight up, Jimmy Flick returns. He takes on Alessandro Costa. And I like Jimmy Flick, you guys. I like Jimmy Flick a lot as a person. He's really awesome. He seems very cool. You know, I chatted him up online. I think we lost Wheezy. I'm not sure what happened there, Uncle Wheezy, but we'll get you back when he comes back. I like Jimmy Flick a lot. You know, he seems like a really nice dude. The problem with Jimmy Flick for me is that he's a glass cannon. I mean, this guy's jiu-jitsu is slick. He is really, really good when it comes to his grappling. However, he cannot take a punch. This is not a guy who's really built for war. You know what I mean? Built for combat. We faded him very successfully when he came back from his retirement against Charles Johnson. And you guys have kind of seen what's been going on with Charles Johnson since then. I overestimated Charles Johnson just a little bit, but the Jimmy Flick fight is kind of the one that I expected to see from some of his other fights where he just unleashed and was able to find, you know, liver and body shots and hurt his opponent, sit them down and get them out of there. It worked on Jimmy Flick. You know what I mean? Alessandro Costa, 12-3, 27 years old. You know, if there's an upside here in this fight, if there's a side the UFC really wants to see take a step forward, it's going to be this kid. He made his UFC debut against Amir Albazi, Wheezy. Amir freaking Albazi. And he's a tank. He's got so much muscle on that frame. He's really strong. He's heavy on his feet. He plods forward, and then he just rips hooks on people. And he caught Albazi with a couple of decent shots. You could see he stung him with those big shots that he landed. And frankly, I don't think Flick is capable of taking those kinds of power shots if he should land them. The problem is I'm really not sure what we're getting with this guy. He's still very new. He's still very young. He has been knocked out twice. Granted, one of those was against Amir Albazi, who we now know is a very elite prospect. So can't really hold that too much against him. As long as he stays safe on the ground, frankly, Weezy, I think he should keep this fight standing. He's got a lot of wins on his record by ground and pound. I think he should just plod forward and punch Jimmy Flick as hard as he can over and over and over again. And if he does that, he probably wins by knockout. Flick has 5 finished losses, 5, and they are all by KO. The guy doesn't have much for durability. He doesn't have much of a chin. He really is sub or bust. For 14 wins by submission, Wheezy. I got to side with the favorite here. I don't like it because I wish I could really like cheer and root for Jimmy Flick as like a fan of his as a person. I really hope to see him do well, but Weezy, I think he retired at the right time. I don't think him coming back is doing him any favors. Minus 250 right now on Alessandro Costa. That number is a little bit rich, but I think he knocks Jimmy Flick out on Saturday.
Yeah, and we've never seen Alessandro Costa submitted, so right there, that's a reason to like him, because we know that what Flick's path to victory is. I don't think he's even out wrestling this guy. He's just gonna chain submission attempts together until he's tired, and then he's gonna look for a way out. And I think that's what we've seen out of Jimmy. He's so dangerous early in fights. I mean, you just don't have to look that far back to find the Cody Durden fight where Cody's tuning him up, landed some good ground and pound, and then one little kick gets behind Cody's head, and all of a sudden he's in a flying triangle, and then it's over. So we know that Jimmy can be very, very dangerous and opportunistic with his submission grappling. But I think that this is one of those fights where it's kind of painfully obvious to the entire betting public how this is going to take place. And because of that, not a lot of value here. You're really overpaying for the Alessandro Costa money line. You're really overpaying for the under 2.5 rounds here. And this fight could be greasy. It could be close, You could be Flick could just string together 7 really close submission attempts, and before you know it, then all of a sudden the third round start, and you're like, holy shit, my under bet's in jeopardy here. So, dude, I'm staying away from this one. I need more information about Alessandro Costa at this level, and I don't think you can really count on Flick. I mean, somebody that's already retired and is 32 years old as a flyweight, those are red flags, and his striking is not good. So there's another big part of the game that he's not doing well in, and he's spending more than half of his UFC cage time at striking range. That's a problem because Costa's going to hit him and hit him hard. So, I mean, I like Costa. I like Costa to win inside the distance, but there's no value on either of those lines right now. So I think this is going to be a stay away, and I can't bet the under either because that's juice to the tits. So, I mean, I'm just staying away.
Justin saying Flick going down, he's only worth 35 cents and going down. That stock is plummeting, it seems. Dad says Costa by murder. Ethan saying I'm betting Costa by death against Flick. Yeah, there's a I completely understand. TNT pouring on, Flick by sub, Costa by KO. I think that's kind of the way you look at it, right? Flick's never winning a decision here. Costa maybe is winning a decision in some world where we have a grappling heavy approach or something like that, but I'm with you guys. We're doing the hive mind brain thing here on this one that Costa just automatically wins by KO. But the problem for me, Weezy, is that doesn't usually turn out well. When everybody is all on the exact same method of victory, finish, all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't go well. So, something crazy ends up happening that kind of ruins it for all of us. So I'm going to stick with picking Costa, and from a betting perspective, at least at this point, I'll leave it alone. That helps me sleep at night a little bit too, as a Jimmy Flick fan, because then I'm not making money off of his demise.
There you go, man. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with staying away from a fight, especially from a betting perspective. We can watch it and enjoy it without having money on it.
Exactly. Not to mention we've got 14 of them this week, and then also Bellator. Yeah. So if you want betting action, there's probably better spots, but we got to give picks. That's the pick. That is the pick. All right. Real quick, everybody, bear with me here. Shout out the sponsors. As you know, Pub Sports Radio hosts the podcast, always has, hopefully always will. And we have got free money for you. These contests every single week. You come in here, pubsportsradio.com, sign up. There's $100 up top to whoever wins this contest. Pick your fighter, pick your method, compete with the other Pub Sports Radio members and personalities. All you got to do is beat us. Take it down, $100 to somebody every single week. Get over there, sign up for free. And hey, hit the like button while you're here on this podcast, if you wouldn't mind. Next up, Spectation Sports, regional MMA. Guys like Trevor Peak, Wheezy, who we cashed big old tickets on. We found them through Spectation Sports. We were watching these younger prospects as they are rising. They're doing some awesome stuff, and they're getting more and more betting lines out for regional shows these days. Lights Out Championship coming up. North Iowa Fight 16 as well this weekend. Sign up using promo code Die Hard. You get 20% off your monthly subscription when you do that. Check it out if you like and need more MMA. Finally, the Sharp app. They've got the optimizer for prize picks, which helps people out a lot. They've got the sharp action report. You can see what the sharps are betting. You can see what the public is on, and you can fade those picks. You can actually see what the bookie needs, and they actually have a notable whale that they report on, and they tail his action. Guy bets like 50 G's a day. It's insane. But check that all out in the Sharp app. Discord, I will tweet out the link if you want to join. And then, of course, get over there using promo code DieHard. They've actually not promo code DieHard. They've got a deal running right now, which they just extended. It's for the NBA playoffs, but they went ahead and rounded it out for the rest of the month, where it's $9.99 instead of the usual price tag for using the Sharp app and all of its optimizer tools and articles, things like that. So if you guys want to join, now's the lowest price you're going to get. Go ahead and go check them out. Thank you all very much for sticking with me through that. Once again, this is the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your guy, Clint, joined by your other guy, Uncle Wheezy, MMA's stat daddy. And we are talking UFC Vegas 75. Having one hell of a year over here. So let's keep it hot. Let's keep it rolling. Next up, Ronnie Barcelos returns against Miles Johns. And Miles Johns, Wheezy, I can no longer confuse him with Tony Gravely. I feel bad that Tony Gravely got released, but those guys are so similar. Prototypes, like they fight the same way. The styles are similar. They both have the bald shaved head. They're built similarly. Like I always confuse the two of them. So it's kind of nice for me selfishly to have one of them off the roster. But Miles John is kind of your prototypical wrestle boxer, right? He definitely likes to crowd his opponents, comes in with heavy hands, tries to hurt you on the feet. Level changes, dips under. You never know if it's an overhand right or a blast double leg. That's his deal. That's what he does. And he's coming in here 17-4. Nope, I'm sorry. That's the wrong record. 13-2, 29 years old, training out of Fortis MMA. You guys know I've got a soft spot for Fortis MMA. My girl Sam Hughes is over there. I like a lot of the fighters that are coming out of that camp. So definitely respect that. He fell in love with his hands a little bit. He was far more patient, however, in his last fight against Vince Morales. I was impressed with the adjustments that he made. He did a lot of really good work, not sitting down quite as hard on his punches, definitely more defensively sound. But this is a big step up in competition for this kid. Let's look at some of his wins. Kevin Natividad, Anderson Dos Santos, Sexy Mexi, Vince Morales. Those are the guys that he's fought. And I'm sorry, I listed Sexy Mexi. He didn't win that fight. Yeah. He got finished in that fight. So the wins that this man has are all guys that have been cut. Kevin Natividad, I mean, he sent him to the Shadow Realm in the third, but he still is not with the UFC anymore. I believe Anderson Dos Santos is also cut. Same situation. He got him out of there in the third, I believe. And then you've got Vince Morales, where, again, he really did show some improvements. He did some good things in that fight. But my poor guy Vince, I think, got cut as well. So the two opponents who are UFC caliber in John Castaneda and Mario Bautista, Wheezy, not only did he lose those fights, he got finished. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure where Miles Johns is at. He's got one sub loss, one KO loss, both to UFC caliber opposition, and now he's getting the absolutely falling Ronnie Barcelos. Barcelos is 17-4, and we talked at length every time we broke this guy's fight down about how good this guy is. How if he was younger when he made it to the UFC, he might be championship caliber. He's got it all, Wheezy. He can sit down on his punches. He can go high volume with you. He feints well. He cuts angles. He's got great wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is slick. The back takes are fast. He's deadly if he gets a squeeze on you. He's 36 years old, but he's on a bit of a rough run. 1-3 in his last 4. He recently catapulted Umar Nurmagomedov into everybody's minds and hopefully getting me closer to cashing that Umar Champion 2023 ticket here for me. Which, by the way, I really need a fight announcement, Wheezy. I need the UFC to go ahead and announce Umar versus
People aren't
Sandhagen.
Picking up the phone. That's the problem with Nurmagomedov. He came out on Twitter and he was like, guys, I'm just a human being. Does anybody want to fight me? That was like 6 months ago. Nobody's stepping into the cage with this guy. It's crazy.
Wheezy, I've got 6 months. I got 40-1, I think 50-1. I got 50-1 on Umar to be champ by the end of the year. And after that fight, he just needs one, man. If he can get one over on a top fiver, he's next for the belt. I'm telling you, I got 6 months. Somebody step in and fight that man. I need a title shot. But back to this fight. I feel for Ronnie Barcelos. I really do. But man, Timur Valiev, solid fighter, lost that one. Victor Henry shocked everybody, dropped the ball as a giant favorite, and then gets flatlined by Umar. Now, in between there, he absolutely handled Trevin Jones. I think this is another recency spot, Wheezy. I think the stock could not be lower on our guy, Ani Barcelos. And because of that, we're getting a half decent number against a guy who, frankly, I'm not convinced is UFC caliber. I know it's kind of the square parlay piece of the week. Everyone seems to feel like this is the free square here. And that terrifies me because that was Builder last week. And I stepped right into that bear trap full force. Minus 225 Ani Barcelos. If he's still anything like the man he was, I think he wins this fight and relatively handily. The thing that kind of does make me a little nervous is the turnaround. He got deaded against Umar Wheezy. I mean, lights out, flat on his back. Umar tried to like save his head from bouncing off the canvas unsuccessfully. That was 5 months ago. I like 9 months, especially at 36 years old. I like when fighters take a little bit longer off before they go ahead and come back. So is the knockout there for Miles Johns? It could be. It very well could be. But I also could see Hani Barcelos just being better than him everywhere. So I definitely agree with him being the favorite. What do you think, Wheezy?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, where is Miles Johns better than Hani Barcelos other than the fact that he's 7 years younger? Anyone?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure.
Maybe the raw power.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Not even convinced. Maybe.
He's got 2 knockdowns in his 6 fights, but Hani Barcelos got 5 knockdowns in 9 fights. So even Barcelos has shown power. And you mentioned the guys that Johns has beat. He's got 4 UFC wins, and you add up the current UFC records of those 4 guys that he beat: 5 wins, 13 losses. So obviously, if Miles Johns were to win this fight, this is his best UFC win by a country mile, if he beats Hani Barcelos here.
Mm-hmm.
But Barcelos trains with the Brazilian national wrestling team. The guy has 12 of 29 on his takedowns, 41%. He's like a 2nd or 3rd degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a great striker, really clean, crisp boxer. Faced and beaten the much better level of competition in comparison to Miles Johns. He's just older. He's older. But who's the better grappler? Barcelos. Who's the better boxer? Barcelos. Who's more experienced? Barcelos. Who's taller? They're the same. 1-inch reach advantage for Barcelos. Better wrestler. Better submission grappler. Fought the better brand of competition. Is it Miles Johns' day on Saturday? It's going to need to be for him to be able to beat somebody like Hani Barcelos, because what's his path? Is he going to win minutes against Hani? Is he going to go out there and pull a Victor Henry and throw 390 significant strike attempts in 15 minutes? I mean, no. Miles Johns throws way less volume than the average. He throws 9.25 distance strike attempts per minute. The average for the bantamweight division is like 11.6. So he's like really below average in terms of volume. Miles Johns has completed 2 of 22 takedown attempts. His takedown accuracy is in Mackenzie Dern land at 9.09%.
And you never want to be in Mackenzie Dern land.
Yeah, I think Mackenzie's fighting really well. I mean, she's pressuring, she's walking forward like a zombie, she's throwing big bombs, she's fighting good for her style, but Miles Johns isn't a submission grappler like Dern is. So yeah, I don't know how Miles wins this fight, to be honest with you. I mean, we would have to see a seriously debilitated Hani Barcelos in order for Miles to win this one. I think Barcelos should cleanly beat this one. And also, I got an under 2.5 rounds in this fight at plus 185, Clint.
Repeat that, Wheezy?
Yeah. The under 2.5 opened at like plus 160. And then it got bet up to plus 185 on Bet Online. I bet that immediately because Johns has been finished in both of his UFC losses.
Yes,
Hani Barcelos just coming off a vicious knockout loss. Both of these guys are finishing finishing half of their UFC wins, and both have been finished in their UFC losses. 2 of 2 for Johns, 1 of 3 for Barcelos. At a big plus 185 number, I mean, I think that's a great bet. but I think that that's moved as much as down to like plus 140 though. So it's not as good of a bet there.
I can dig it, Wheezy. I like that. I like that a lot. Give me violence on this fight for sure, because I know for a fact Miles Johns can get finished. So based on what we just saw, and real quick, I do want to address again, guys, I do apologize for the technical difficulties. Can't quite get anything. Something's wrong with StreamYard. We're up over 160 live viewers here. I see your comments in the chat, but I can't highlight them. So I'll shout out what I can. But Aaron's saying, look at the punch that dropped Barcelos. Watch it when you guys are live and tell me that's not an absolute liability. Here's the trick, Aaron. Here's the trick. He disguises it behind that knee. Ronnie Barcelos is not looking for that hand. He was all focused in on that knee. The knee just misses. Ronnie thinks he's done his job, and then that hand comes out of nowhere. So for him, with most knockouts, it's the one you don't see coming. Yeah. So if he had been prepared to defend that punch, I don't think it puts him out. I really don't. I think that he could take that shot if he was prepped for it. However, he thought he was in the clear and was on the counterattack when it landed because Umar disguised it so well. And yeah, Danny's saying perfect placement too. That's another part of it. He absolutely hit him on the button. So, King Umar, if not this year, then next year. But as far as this fight goes, I mean, I kind of like Barcelos inside the distance, Wheezy. I'm picking him to win this fight. And it is a little bit of a liability with him coming back quickly from that age, from that kind of a turnaround. But I just don't think Miles Johns is on this level. I don't think he's ever been on this level. And frankly, I haven't seen the kind of improvements that I would need to see to say that I can project him to get on this kind of level. So maybe some kind of a fluky KO. But if not, I expect Barcelos to win this fight everywhere.
I do too, man. I just don't know where Miles is better than Barcelos, so I'm not sure what Miles' path to victory is here. Maybe he lands a big shot and sleeps Barcelos, but that's anybody's path to victory in this sport. So I need something more than that to hang my hat on. So other than that, I'm just going to say Barcelos money line could be a potential parlay piece this week.
Absolutely. I mean, Barcelos could just get old overnight, Wheezy. Father Time beats us all. And This could just be it. He could have fallen off the cliff. And that's what this price tag says. Because if he has not fallen off a cliff, he would be minus 350 in this spot instead. So I'm going to take the buy low spot on the vet that everyone just saw die against the best fighter in this division.
Yep. I agree 100% with that read.
All right. Let's move on, Wheezy. Glad we agree on that one. Next up, Muslim Salikov takes on Nikolas Dalby. And I may have had what I think is a good read on that last fight, Wheezy. I don't got a read on this one. I have no idea what to do with this fight, Wheezy. If you look at me historically, two fighters that have just given me fits, Muslim Salikov and Nikolas Dalby. First off, Muslim Salikov, I expected this guy to be an old man 3 years ago, Wheezy. That cliff we talked about coming, yeah, I thought that was here for him. And he just keeps doing the damn thing. The Leech got him. The Leech knocked him out. And then he comes right back against Andre Fialho. And I don't think I actually bet that one. I might have talked about it. I'm not sure I got to the window. I'd have to look back at my results. But he KOs Andre Fialho in the third round. He went 15 minutes with Francisco Trinaldo, who's an ageless Brazilian, one of these guys that's built like a brick shithouse and just never gets old. He went to a split with Elizeu Zaleski, who's still doing the damn thing and just won a fight a couple weeks ago. He refuses to die. This man is tough. He is durable. He hits like a truck. Every single limb could knock you out. He's incredibly explosive, a little bit low volume, but the amount of power this guy has really makes up for it. And he's got those like spinning heel kicks that come out of nowhere that'll clip you right at the edge of the range. Like, he is so perfect with his timing and his tactics. I just have never been able to get on the other side of him correctly. Nikolas Dalby, 21-4. Same exact situation. He's 38 years old. So winner of this fight, folks, gets a new hip. We got 38 versus 39, and he's on a 3-1 run. The only loss to Tim Means. And if that tells you anything, Weezy, how maddening is it that I can't fade a man whose most recent loss is against Tim Means? Like, if you're losing to Tim Means in 21, 22, or 23, you're probably fade material. But he squeezed out a decision victory, a split against Warley Alves against me, because of course he did. He beat Claudio Silva. He beat Daniel Rodriguez. Wheezy, I lost so much money the night that he beat Daniel Rodriguez. I thought that was the home run. I was Babe Ruth. I was ready for D-Rod there in that spot. And this man somehow manages to win that fight. He's a decent wrestler. He's got a bad gas tank, and he's one of these guys that hangs on for dear life in the third round, manages to get you to the ground just one more time to go ahead and swing the fight in his favor and survive it. I just can never beat Nicolas Dalby, Wheezy. So for all of this, I have to tell you guys, do not listen to me. Like, for the show, I've got to give you a pick. It's my job. But don't tail it. Fade it. If you guys want to fade me, this is the spot to fade me. Muslim Salikov is a minus 190 favorite. Nicolas Dalby, the plus 155 underdog. Wheezy, I'm siding with the favorite. I think Muslim Salikov, both these guys are old, but I think he's physically the stronger man. I think he hits harder of the two. And even though he's probably going to have a little bit less volume than his opponent in this spot, I expect that he probably will win these moments by just cracking harder. You know what I mean? Visually speaking, the judges will enjoy what Salikov is doing more than what Nicolas Dalby is doing. This is your fireball and popcorn fight of the night, folks. This is the one where you take a break. Use the bathroom. Go refresh your drink or pop a fresh bag of popcorn. Unless you hear Joe Rogan screaming because there was a spinning heel kick KO. Like, I think this is going to be another boring 15-minute type of fight where Nicolas Dalby just barely survives, and they're both tired in the third round, and Muslim is spinning at, throwing heel kicks at the air, just trying to clip this guy one last time to get something in. I'm going to pick Muslim Salikov to win. How he does it, I don't know. That means Nicolas Dalby's going to win by split. What do you think, Wheezy? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I tend to echo your sentiments. With Muslim, you got a power striker who's very low volume. At distance, he's only attempting 6.66 distance strike attempts per minute. Dalby's attempting 13.25. So like Dalby's twice as active on the feet as Muslim. But Dalby's never knocked anybody down. Dalby's never finished anybody at the UFC level, and he's never been finished. All 10 of I should say all 9 of this fights that were not no contests went to decision. I'm partly of Danish descent, and Danes are incredibly tough people, Clint. They are ridiculously tough people. My grandmother lived to the age of 95. She was run over by a threshing machine at the age of 6. Her left leg was almost detached from her body. She underwent a bone graft at the age of 6 and then lived 89 more years after that, working her ass off for her entire life. When she died at the age of 95, she went into her grave with a pin on her chest that suggested that she donated over 1,000 hours of her time at a nursing home. She was working for people that were younger than her in a nursing home. My great-grandmother, Severine, during the war, back in 1900, gave birth to my Uncle Augie, who was 14 and a half pounds at birth.
Dear God.
Nearly tore this woman in half. She went back to churning butter that night. And that kid was so ugly that her parents wouldn't even let anybody see little Augie. Little Augie came out 14 and a half pounds. They put him in a crib on the top floor of the house, and they wouldn't let anybody see him for 8 months because he had a melon head so big that they were embarrassed of him. That man still grew up to go and fight in 2 wars, open up 3 banks, and live a very successful life. People like Mark Madsen got his jaw broken in the Hubbard fight and pushed through that 3rd round. Never said a thing. He nearly died from a staph infection as a result of that jaw break. He had a hard time getting back to the cage after that. Did you ever see the Nick Dalby versus Ross Houston fight?
No, that one doesn't ring a bell. I'm sure I watched it at some point over the course of my tape study, but I'm not remembering it off.
Oh, you would have remembered it, Clint. It was a 5-round title fight in Cage Warriors where both guys got cut so bad that the fight was canceled midway through the 3rd round due to the entire canvas being covered with blood.
Oh my
Neither
God.
guy could catch their footing, and Mark Goddard had to stop the fight because it wasn't even a safe canvas to fight on anymore. You're not getting Nick Dalby out of there. That's basically what I'm saying. These Danes, you don't finish them. Nobody ever finishes them. The Germans couldn't finish them. They tried several times. And the Danes are just that little country north of Germany. But the Germans couldn't finish them. They'll never will either. This fight's going to decision. Okay? If you like Salikov, bet him to win by decision. If you like Dalby, bet him to win by decision. Nobody finishes the Danes. They are tough, stoic people. And a guy like Muslim Salikov is a pinpoint striker, but I think you'd need a shovel to knock out Nick Dalby. I guess the pick is Muslim Salikov by decision, but I could see Dalby just doing more over 15 minutes and potentially coming out the other end with a win here. Very tough fight.
Damn, Wheezy. That was one hell of a breakdown. I mean, props to you on the family history, and your grandma sounds like the most badass woman I've ever met or heard of in my entire life. So you gotta enjoy that kind of blood running through your veins there. But that's fantastic. And all right, so the long story short, folks, is we don't pick a side because frankly I suck at that with these two fighters. We just take the over. What's the over looking at for this fight, Wheezy?
I think it's about minus 180 right now. Let's see here. Dalby Salikov, the over 2.5, minus 180. The fight goes to decision minus 150. But Nikolas Dalby
isn't bad.
Yeah, all 9 of his fights that weren't the no contest went to decision in the UFC. All 9 of them, 100% decision rate for Dalby. So when you're only paying 60% on that line, I think you're getting the right line there at minus 150. Could a finish happen? Of course it could. It's MMA. Anything can happen. But I think stylistically, I think data-wise, I think it's a good bet.
Yeah. Okay. I like it, Wheezy. I like it. And hey, if I can still get something anywhere near minus 150 for this fight to go the distance, I think that's the move. I think that's what we'll take for this one. Evan in the chat doing the emoji. Clint's like, and you're not wrong. I wasn't expecting that breakdown, but I got to tell you guys, I've got some decent blood running through my veins too. There's a castle in Scotland, Castle McLean, baby. We got royal blood in these veins. My people got bored, Wheezy, and they chop down trees and throw them. That's what my people do for entertainment. So there's definitely some good stuff going on over on this side too.
Sounds like we got some interesting family backgrounds, man. That's
yes,
awesome.
Sir. Yes, sir. Next up, Nikolas Motta takes on Manuel Torres. And another fight, really, Wheezy, that I'm struggling with. We're this deep into the card, and these fights are sketchy. These fights are very, very, very sketchy. There's not a lot to know about these guys. A lot of really unproven fighters here. 13-4, Nikolas Motta, 30 years old, training at Extreme Couture. You guys know I like that gym. He's starting to look like a miniature Chris Curtis. You watch his last fight, the way he went out there, got himself into range, and exploded with that left hand. I feel like Chris Curtis must have taken this kid under his wing because the way he killed Cameron Van Camp in the first round felt very reminiscent of Chris Curtis to me. Heavy boxing style, extremely fast hands, great killer instinct. He's got to be riding high after that last win there. I kind of thought maybe he was a little chinny. He does have 3 losses, all by knockout. But maybe we can walk that back a little bit. I mean, it was Jim Miller that got him out of there, and we know that guy can crack. Robert Hale, if you guys don't know Robert Hale, the king, they call this man, he actually, I feel like he's just ever so slightly shy of UFC. Like every single time he gets close, he took one little step back right when it looked like he was going to get the opportunity. My guy Dan, Half the Battle, can tell you all about Robert Hale. He's a good dude, but knocked him out in round 1. I think you could make an argument that he deserves to be in the octagon, or maybe we'll see him in the octagon sometime in the near future. He's only 30 years old, so I hope so. But, at any rate, Nikolas Motta, 3 KO losses. You got to be a little nervous about that, especially when Manuel Torres is the opponent. He is 13-2, and this guy swings everything in every punch. Bad intentions from this man. He came into the UFC and once again cost me some money. And you're going to hear that a lot on this card, guys. That's why I haven't made a bet yet this week, is because everybody on this card is somebody who I seem to have not the greatest read on. A lot of them have cost me a lot here in the past. Frank Camacho. Wheezy, I tried the Dana White Contender Series fade angle on this kid because he's a wild man in round one. Everything he does is round one knockout. And I don't know to this day what he looks like going into round 2 or 3. I think a UFC caliber fighter can probably gas Manuel Torres out, drag him into deep waters, and mess him up, especially if they use their grappling. And that's kind of what I thought Frank Camacho would do. A guy who's been in the UFC absolutely forever and fought a much higher level of competition. Guys like, Drew Dober, he went 15 minutes with. He fought Jeff Neal, Jing the Leech Liang. Like, I really thought he would be able to handle this kid's power. The round 1 KO streak is alive and well, and my pockets were just a little bit lighter. He absolutely smoked Frank Camacho in the first round. This guy puts a barn burner on every time he's in the cage. He's got great footwork, solid kicks, 6 KOs, 6 subs. He's a violent fighter. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot, Wheezy, and I kind of like him. I mean, I know Nikolas Motta looked really, really good his last fight, but Van Camp is super chinny. We've seen Van Camp chinned in many a fight, wobbled constantly. This guy gets hurt almost every single fight that he's in. Miguel Torres is a minus 185 favorite, plus 150 for Nikolas Motta. I think Nikolas Motta is the more technical fighter, but I think the size is the difference here, Wheezy. The size and the power go on the other side of this thing. The speed and the technique go on the Motta side. Who lands first? Whose chin holds up more? I might just bet the dang under. So I'm going to lead with the favorite, but I actually think that I'm going to look for violence in this fight if I bet anything, because I can't see this fight going 15 minutes, Wheezy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this is an easy one for me. I bet the under. I was waiting for it to open. I got it at minus 105. It actually opened at plus 160 for the under 1.5. That would have been a max bet. Torres has been out of the first round once in his entire career. Once. I picked Manuel Torres for the ass shaving of the week when he fought Camacho, because when I had watched the tape on Camacho, I was like, holy shit, Camacho is horrible. Camacho is a guy who has no defense, and he relies on his chin, but he had been chin checked so many times because of the wars, because of the lack of defense, that he had gotten to a point where I'm like, man, if he gets hit one more time, he might die. And fucking damn near happened, when Torres beat him. But I had a very low opinion of Frank Camacho going into that fight. I thought he was pretty much done as a fighter. And now I think he is retired. I think he is done. This Nick Motta, no, man, this guy hits hard. This guy's got serious power. I think Cesar Balmaceda is still eating all of his meals through a straw. Did you see that knockout in CFFC? Dude, like, his head was up against the cage. It looked like he had broken his neck.
Yeah.
This dude's left hook is something ridiculous, Nick.
Nasty left hook.
I just got a feeling like Torres, his only chance to finish this fight is in round 1. If it gets out of round 1, Nick Motta's finishing Joe Selecki. Not Selecki. Was it Selecki? Yeah, it was Selecki.
Yeah, Selecki. Sorry. Sabatini's in my head because we're going to talk about him in a minute.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was Selecki that he knocked him out in the 3rd round. This guy's been in there with Glyco Franca back in 2015. Now, that's 2015. Nick Motta is only 30 years old. So he fought Glyco Franca when he was 22. He was in the Ultimate Fighter House when he was like 21, 22 years old. And he's got fights prior to that. This kid's been a pro since he was a kid. Been in there with guys like Balmaceda, like Joe Lowry, like Juan Gonzalez, Robert Hale, Joe Selecki. He's been in there with real fighters. Now let's go through Manuel Torres's wins. We already lost my camera. All right. This is what happens when I just touch my mouse. I touch my mouse, dude, and like my camera comes unplugged. It's crazy. But here are the wins for this guy Torres. Colton England on the Contender Series 9-3, who we poked in the eye.
I remember that.
And then finished him. That's his best win. He beat somebody named Carlos Cañada.
Wheezy. Wait. We got to pause. That was one of my biggest points, one of my biggest selling points on the Frank Camacho fight, was that if you go back and you watch his Dana White's Contender Series fight, the ref misses the eye poke. And he's just like, no, fight, bro. So this guy flurries on some poor dude that's like bleeding out of his eye.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his KO win on the Contender Series. He smells so fraudulent to me with that kind of a knockout coming into the UFC. Damn it, Wheezy. All right, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, Carlos Cañada, 10-11. He beats that guy. He beats Daniel Vega in a promotion called El Combate 6. Daniel Vega was 12-2 going into that
12-8 now, by the way.
Yeah, 12-8-1 now. You know, I mean, 6 straight losses after he, you know, he lost to Carlos Calvo. He lost to Mahatma Garcia Avalos. I've never seen somebody with the first name Mahatma and the last name Avalos. You're not going to see that.
He's 10-9-1 now, Wheezy.
Yeah, and they're okay. Yeah, Luis Pedro Cervantes, Donny Matos, Enrico Gonzalez, Julio Munoz. You know, like, who the hell are these people? While this guy Torres is beating these guys, Motta's, you know, fighting Gleyko Franca. He's fighting Joe Solecki. He's fighting Robert Hale. Both of these guys have power. One of these guys we know can go past one round and win a fight. I got money. I bet the under 1.5 rounds here, and I got a unit on the money line for Nick Motta. This makes no sense to me. This should be a 50-50 fight. I think Motta should actually be the favorite because he's fought the better brand of competition, because he's good where Torres is good, and we've seen him fight past the first round and actually succeed. So I think there's a lot more information out there on Motta. Thought he's fought the better brand of competition, and he's good where Torres is good. So I love the Motta money line. I got it at plus 165.
Okay. All right, Wheezy. I like it. You're bringing me back, man. You're bringing me back around. Like I said, I was picking the favorite. Wheezy's being extremely convincing here. I faded Manuel Torres for a reason in his debut. Maybe we missed that opportunity. Maybe we missed that chance. I still think under is probably the better bet of the two, because if he does win, it's going to happen early in round one. But I might ride the lightning here with you on Nikolas Motta, especially what's the KO prop looking like? What's Motta's KO prop look like?
So keep in mind that Torres has never been knocked out. He's only been subbed, but the Motta KO prop right now is
Motta's not subbing anybody.
It's at plus 200.
That's it.
So think about how stupid that is, right? I mean, like, why wouldn't you just bet the under when you can get that at minus 140 right now? These guys have got 6 combined losses. They're all finishes. Motta, all 4 losses inside the distance. Torres, both of his losses inside the distance. Torres, a 92% finish rate, you know? And then Motta has got a 69% finish rate just by knockout. So, yeah, bet violence here. This fight is not going past a round and a half. And you can even use that as a parlay piece this week. But in my opinion, Nick Motta at plus 160 is just silly.
Okay. I like it, Wheezy. I like it. You've brought me back to the side of the light. We talked about recency bias, already a couple of times. And I think I'm dealing with my own recency bias here in this spot, because I lost money trying to fade this man the last time out. That always makes his thing just a little bit more. So we'll see. I've got some more due diligence to do here on this fight. And folks, those of you who have been listening to the show, I will fully admit to you guys, the parents were in town this weekend. So the study is not quite as sharp as it necessarily always is, which is why I haven't made a single bet yet this week. I haven't put my money yet on anything. I'm breaking the whole card down here for you, and then I will post anything I actually feel strong enough to bet on social media as always, and we'll wrap it up on Friday with the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show. A lot of this stuff is going to be a work in progress throughout the week for me, and I'll get you as much sharpness as I possibly can by the time we get to the end of the week. Jacqueline, hanging out in the chat. What is up? Thank you for joining the show. Scrolling back through some of these comments, I got to get caught up here, guys. I do apologize again. StreamYard's goofing up, so I can't highlight your comments like I normally do. I see you. I hear you. You're all still very important to the show. Just something wrong with the system here today. We had Beach Money asking, what sports book do I use? Up until very recently, it was exclusively Superbook. But no, I use Superbook mainly because of that sponsorship. And then I do use MGM. I like DraftKings a lot. And then FanDuel when they've got those lines that jump out at you out of nowhere. But mostly it was Superbook and FanDuel were my two mainstays. But now I get to gamble wherever the fuck I want to. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Real quick, Wheezy. I've got a tangent for just a second. Because MMA Locker Room and I do not always see eye to eye. We don't always agree on things. But he's upset that I brought up my guy, Action Man Chris Curtis, saying that he was looking for a way out of that fight. Guys, I got to tell you, Chris Curtis is maybe the one fighter, the one human being who we should know for a fact is not taking a DQ. The man says time and time again how he's striving for Valhalla. He wants a beautiful death in the octagon. He is not capable of being knocked out. He took a headbutt from Kelvin Gastelum and still was not enough to hurt the man badly enough to get him out of there. He doesn't quit. He doesn't stop in fights. Now, I know a lot of people don't like him because of the Twitter shenanigans. I know he's blocked a bunch of people. I know he complains, about all the fights and stuff like that. And people really don't like him because of that. I get it. Trust me, I get that. I'm not talking about that. I'm not defending that. But because of that, I think everyone's really cutting the guy a short rope here. He got headbutted in the eye. Like, he has a corneal abrasion. For those of us couch jockeys who gamble on and watch these fights constantly, can you imagine? Like, eye pokes are bad enough, Wheezy. Eye pokes are bad enough. Bisping lost his damn eye because of an eye injury in the UFC. But imagine somebody crashing their head into your face and then having so much blood pouring into your eye that you couldn't get it open. You couldn't clean it out enough to open your eye in the fight. And everyone's like, he knew what he was saying. He knows they're going to stop the fight as soon as he says that he can't see. He knows that's the doctor's job. And it's like, guys, just bear with me for 2 seconds. What if he's just telling the truth that he can't open his eye? Like, he's reaching over to the official and wiping blood on the guy's sleeve to try to clean his eye out. Like, that's not a guy who is feigning an eye injury. Nobody's grabbing the shirt off the official to bloody it up to stay in a fight. Like, he said he couldn't see. Give me a minute. Like, he was trying to clear that eye out. Anyway, all right. I could go, Wheezy, I could ramble on this. I could rant for 20 minutes straight on that situation. Chris Curtis deserves a lot of flack for some of the shit that he's done online. He doesn't deserve this one, guys. This one, like, he got headbutted. That's his opponent's fault. This is back-to-back fights where he's been headbutted and it's cost him big in these situations. He was losing that fight. I'll fully admit that. Imavov was winning that fight. That doesn't mean he's looking for a way out when he got his eye compromised, guys. Like, just cut him a little bit of slack for that one. All right, moving along.
Let me just say,
go for it, Weezy.
Because Locker Room, we were on the Pub Sports Radio stream live when that happened. We were watching the shows on the live stream. I told him that's the worst take I've ever heard in my life. Chris Curtis is not looking for a way out of anything. The one fight that Chris Curtis turned down in his entire career was a fight against Elias Theodorou, rest in peace. And the reason he didn't take that fight was because he said that Elias was just going to hug him for 15 minutes. Chris Curtis's durability and toughness should not be questioned by anybody on the face of the planet fucking ever. If you don't like that he blocked you on Twitter, that's fine. If you don't like that he talks too much shit on Twitter, that's fine. If you don't like that he bitched after the Gastelum fight that he wanted the Wurzelter, anything, just please don't say that he's looking for a way out of anything, because that's exactly. Fucking bullshit.
Exactly. No, Weezy, I really wish, and now obviously we could never do this. I want to be one of those guys that you see on TikTok with like the microphone with people on the street. I want to just be like, hey, will you let me poke you in the eye and see how long it takes you to recover? Like, I want to line up 10 people, 10 MMA fans, and be like, all right, stand here, bam, and then be like, all right, start the timer. Let's see when you're ready to fight. Like, put gloves on them. We'll give you 5 minutes, and then that guy over there is going to start punching you in the face. Let's see how you do. I want to test this. We need Mythbusters for MMA. That's what we need. All right. I'm off. I'm getting off my pedestal here. Pat Sabatini taking on Lucas Almeida. And Wheezy, Pat Sabatini has once again been just one of these guys. I was so sold on Pat Sabatini. I was so sold on him. He is such a slick grappler. He's another brick shit house. He's another well-muscled guy that's going to drag you around the cage, find his way to top position, make you carry his weight, exhaust you, tire you out, opportunistic submissions, 11 wins by sub. 2 of his losses, yeah, you guessed it, Wheezy, both by KO. This guy is a grappler, and when he gets tagged, it's not pretty. I will look back and forever cringe at the Jamal Emmers fight where he got heel hooked right after having this man dead. Dead, Wheezy, dead. He gave up a heel hook immediately after. So betting on, betting against, doesn't matter. This guy is costing me money. Now, he got by TJ Laramie, someone who's been let go from the organization, and then he got smoked by a furious Damon Jackson in his last UFC fight. So I've kind of come to the realization that I think this guy is a little bit not sub or bust because he can win decisions, but man, he's got to have that physicality edge. You know who he is, Wheezy? He's Jillian Robertson. Pat Sabatini has to be stronger than you if he's going to win the fight. If he isn't stronger than you or he can't keep you on the mat, he's probably going to lose. Lucas Almeida here is 14-1, and boy, did he have a fun UFC debut. This guy got absolutely chinned by Mike Trizano in round 1 of his UFC debut and somehow stayed conscious after eating a knee immediately after, and then fought his way back into that fight. And then not only did he beat Mike Trizano, Wheezy, he finished him in the 3rd round. And again, cost me money. I was big on Mike Trizano that night, Wheezy. I thought we were seeing Trizano 2.0. I thought we were going to finally see that kid live up to his spectacular high limit, the high end of his capabilities that we just never seem to see from him. I thought that's the Trizano we were getting. Nope, not that night. So what we've got now is a Pat Sabatini who is coming in here who does not want to get hit against the Lucas Almeida, who's really, really fast on the feet. This guy's got power. He's got quick counters, and he's got nasty low calf kicks. 3 canceled fights in a row, Wheezy. Hakeem Dawodu, Andre Fili, and Zubi Takugov. Those are fights that I feel like the UFC is looking to give this guy a half-decent opponent. Whether that's pushing him or getting them a win, I'm not entirely certain at this point yet, but those are some pretty high-profile names. At least, Zubi was before he got caught, obviously. He was a guy they were trying to push. It almost leads me to believe the UFC is looking to get Pat Sabatini back on track here just a little bit. Almeida is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot, and Pat Sabatini is a -185 favorite. My stomach is just churning, Wheezy, at the idea of laying -185 on Pat Sabatini here in this spot. However, I'm not really sure how well Almeida grapples. We have seen him down on the ground on his back a couple times now. Trizano, knocked him down to get him there, and he didn't use takedowns the way I really thought he was going to in that fight. I wouldn't be at all shocked if Pat Sabatini just audits this kid, and he's not nearly UFC caliber on the ground, and that's the difference maker. So I'm picking Pat Sabatini, but again, I just cannot bring myself to lay that kind of chalk in this spot here. And we might have another under because this kid can crack on the feet. We've seen it. He can hit really hard. And Pat doesn't do well with that kind of offensive firepower. And his submission game is probably light years ahead of Lucas when it comes to the mat. Another striker versus grappler situation where maybe we just bet violence. Weezy, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think violence is a bad look at all, because the one thing I really don't know about this fight is what does Lucas Almeida's ground game look like? See, that's what we're going to find out on Saturday, because, Pat Sabatini's got 5 UFC fights, 48 minutes in the UFC cage time, right? He's only spending 23% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range. So when you got a guy that's a good grappler like Pat, and you see that he's spending 77% of his fights in control time positions, you love to see that. Not only is the guy good there, but he lives there, right? With Lucas Almeida, we know what this guy's good at. He's got serious power, man. If you stand at distance with this guy, he's going to be looking to take your head off, and he's going to bring you into a war where he's going to trust his chin, and he knows that yours is going to crack before his. But we know Pat Sabatini, Clint. He's not fighting that fight here. He's not going to fucking stand there. He just got knocked out by Damon Jackson. You think that this dude is going to be shooting a takedown in the first 10 seconds? Because I do. I've seen Lucas Almeida fight. I cashed on Lucas Almeida against Trezano. I cashed on the under 2.5 in that fight. I cashed on Damon Jackson against Pat Sabatini on the money line at plus 200. And I cashed an under 2.5 in that fight at plus 205. So I've been on the right side of these guys. I cashed on Almeida against Trezano. I cashed on Damon Jackson against Sabatini. And the reason I cashed on Damon Jackson against Sabatini was I had a bet on Sabatini against TJ Laramie. And about 2/3 of the way through that fight, I was like, holy shit, this is anybody's fight, you know? So I think I can count on Pat to do the right thing here, which is go out there, grapple this dude. Don't test your striking against Lucas Almeida. That would be stupid. And I don't think Pat Sabatini's stupid. This guy is 17-4 for a reason. He knows how to win fights. He knows what he's good at, right? So I think he's going to take this fight to the ground. 12 of 28 on his takedowns in the UFC. He's averaging 3.75 per 15 minutes. He averages 8.75 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. So he's doing everything that you need to see him do in order to win this fight. So I think that Pat Sabatini is going to beat Lucas Almeida. I think he could potentially get a submission in this spot. And for the under 2.5, let's see where that one is at. Under 2.5, minus 150.
Huh.
It's a 60% implied probability, but only 38.8% of featherweight fights go under 2.5. So stylistically, I think it's a pretty good read, but I think minus 150 is a little overpriced, so I wouldn't be running to the window for that.
Okay. Hey, I like everything that I just heard from you, Uncle Wheezy. If you're with me on Pat Sabatini, then by God, I think we ride Pat Sabatini. That's the way that I'm going to look here in this spot, I think. And I hope we do well on this one. I don't know if I'm going to actually get to betting it. We'll see if I get there. That's a high price tag, I feel like. But I do think that's probably the right side. I do think he abuses the grappling here in this spot. You just hope he doesn't get chinned beforehand. Real quick, got to shout out my guy in the chat. Let's see here. Ethan saying, Clint, hook a brother up with the link to the shirt. I just stuck that there in the chat for you, Ethan. Thank you very much. Just so you guys know, I've got some awesome new merch. That's my shop. That's probably the best way that you can support me besides, the easiest way, number one way, obviously, is just hitting the like button. That helps me out a whole lot. But if you guys want to support me directly, buying my shirt, walking around with the Die Hard MMA pod or a Always Trust Your Balls t-shirt is probably going to be the best way that you can do that. So there you go. Thank you very much, Ethan. I appreciate you. And I also appreciate Marcus Williams, $10 donation here in the chat today, showing some love from Atlanta, Georgia. I respect the consistent hard work and solid content Die Hard MMA and Wheezy drop on YouTube, Nerubian Bookstore. Thank you very much, Marcus. Very much appreciate that, my friend. Thank you for the donation and thank you for the kind words. Mostly Wheezy, absolutely another one of the hardest working guys out here. So appreciate him sticking with me here. And can you believe it, guys? We're still not even done yet. So we got to hustle up a little bit. The tangent that I went on for Chris Curtis bought us a little too much time there. So let's get these last couple fights knocked out here, Wheezy. Christian Leroy Duncan take on Armen Petrosyan. And you guys that have been watching this show for a while, you know how I feel about Armen Petrosyan. I believe this guy is criminally underrated, Wheezy. Armen Petrosyan is a big body for this weight class. He is a slick striker. He changes ranges really effectively. Nice kicks when he's in kicking range, sits on his punches when he's in tight in boxing range. I love everything about Armen Petrosyan, and he's just kind of a motherfucker. Like, he just refuses to go away. He's tough. He's durable. He can be taken down. And that's really the big thing a lot of people point to for his game, is that he gets a little exposed in the grappling. But he's a Jamal Hill type, Uncle Wheezy. He gets up. Like, his get-up game is fantastic. He's got an urgency to him to get to the cage and work his way back to the feet and then make you pay for trying to take him down. He's only 7-2. He's got a lot of room to grow. And I think he's a solid technical brawler, somebody who I like, and I think we're going to make decent money with. You look back through his record, he fought Kyle Barallo, and that fight, honestly, I thought that fight was close, Wheezy. It was a unanimous decision for Kyle, but like you run that back and I felt like a couple of those rounds really could have gone either way, especially with modern day scoring where damage over control. Like he was in that fight, and people think extremely highly of Kyle Barallo. Now, his opponent, Christian Leroy, undefeated. He's a fighter a lot of people are really hyped about. But you look at his UFC debut over Dusko. It was an injury. Again, it was another weird, fluky situation. He was tied up in the clinch and he pivoted the wrong way. Something exploded in his knee. You know, you feel really bad for Dusko. It's not a guy that I'm overly impressed with, Wheezy. I think he's barely UFC caliber. He's fragile. And so I thought Christian Duncan was going to finish him. Didn't think it was going to go like that. But he's a former Cage Warriors champion, big, powerful, very explosive. He gives me Cyril Gane vibes, Wheezy. The way he moves, the way he flows, he just kind of floats his kicks out there. He stays really, really special at range. He's just out of range of your attacks, explodes in when he wants to, gets out of the way of the counters, lots of feints, keeps you on the back end. A lot of the time you're on the back foot just because you never really know what's coming. He switches stances a lot. And apparently he went out to Tiger Muay Thai leading up for this camp. I would love to take the shot here on Armen Petrosyan. And I might, Wheezy, and I might. But Christian Duncan, quite frankly, is the type of fighter that I'm not looking to get on the other side of. I need a little bit more time in this fight because I think this is going to be close. I think this is going to be very competitive. It's going to be a striking match against two very high caliber strikers. And I think we're going to get a technical back and forth in this spot. Honestly, I think maybe over is the best spot here, Wheezy. Like I think totals this week might be the best way to play 90% of these fights. And that's kind of how I feel here.
Yeah, I saw a lot in the totals this week too. And this is a striker versus striker matchup. So both of these guys are going to get the fight that they want. I like the over as well, and here's why. We've seen Petrosyan knocked out once. It happened on the regional scene first round right away. Christian Duncan, 8-0 as a professional, but I think he's got 23 amateur fights, 17-6 amateur record, and in those 6 losses, he's never been finished. So this kid Duncan's been around for a minute, and he's got really slick striking, and so does Petrosyan. So I kind of see this as being kind of a close fight. It's striker versus striker. Both guys get the fight that they want. Both guys, you know, Petrosyan 10 pro fights, Duncan 8. Petrosyan a little more time in the pro cage, probably a little bit better level of competition in comparison to Duncan. But Duncan's fought Will Curry twice. Jati Milan, some good guys, you know, some good Cage Warriors level competition. So I think it's a very close fight, but the line doesn't make any sense to me. Why is Christian Leroy Duncan this big of a favorite against somebody that's got the same skill set and has fought just as good a competition as him? I like Petrosyan by decision here.
I like it, Wheezy. I don't mind. Honestly, I think the over is the play. I think the decision prop is the play. And I've said it a lot, maybe even the split decision, because you're going to get a lot of back and forth in this fight. You're going to get a lot of spots where I think the judges are maybe going to have a hard time discerning who's winning these exchanges, you know? So given that, I think it's going to be a close, very competitive fight. And if that's the case, give me another split. I think that's probably the way I want to look here in this spot. Well, you know, again, I haven't bet anything yet, so we'll see what ends up happening. But that's the way I lean. I'm going to lean with Armen Petrosyan with you. I'm going to lean the over. Petrosyan by decision makes a ton of sense. And what's the number on that, Wheezy? What are we getting for that?
225 plus 225 for Petrosyan by decision. I'm sorry, plus 250. And then Christian Duncan by decision is plus 185.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad at all. I mean, you would think that Petrosyan's method of victory you'd want to play is probably a knockout, but I actually think decision makes more sense in this case. I don't think Duncan is going to get caught with, you know, too big of a shot. I think he'll be able to roll with the punches and survive whatever comes his way. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is a good decision spot, and I think that this is a 50-50 fight, so the plus money on Petrosyan makes sense.
Good deal. Good deal, Wheezy. I am glad that you are with me on that. I think that is the move. All right, folks, we have almost done it. We are almost there. We are at your co-main event of the evening, and here's where we get to the good stuff. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva. And Wheezy, I hate to say it, we can save a little time here, buddy. What is Arman doing fighting Neto BJJ? We talked earlier in the evening about cousin Umar. His phone just rings to voicemail constantly because no one wants to pick it up as soon as they see his name pop up. That's the same thing with Arman Tsarukyan. Nobody wants a piece of this kid. He's a 10-1 favorite. Guys, when we see 10-1 favorites in the UFC, we see them all the time in Bellator and PFL. In the UFC, it's Amanda Nunes fighting a Can. It's a John Jones facing a short notice replacement like that. Those are when we see 10-1s. We almost never get 10-1s in the UFC. He is a massive, massive favorite, and deservedly so. This guy's going to be a title contender. He might even touch gold one day, Wheezy. I could tell you about everything Arman Tsarukyan does really well, but we would be here another 25 minutes. He's solid everywhere. Renato Moicano, unfortunately, had an injury and had to pull out. Props to Joaquim Silva for coming in here on short notice. Dude is 12-3, but his most recent fight was against Jesse Ronson. He got knocked out by Ricky Glenn. I mean, this fight is whatever way Arman Tsarukyan wants it, Wheezy. I don't know if he's going to play with his food and put on a clinic, or if he's going to come and steamroll through this guy. I tend to lean Arman Tsarukyan by knockout, but pick your poison. I mean, the inside the distance is going to be -300. So stay away from this one, or, pick your poison as far as how you want to approach this. I don't know that he's going to submit the guy that's never been submitted and whose nickname is Neto BJJ. So I'd be looking at KO myself.
Yeah, here comes the hot take. I like Tsarukyan here. I think he's going to win this fight, Clint. You heard it here
first. Hot Cheetos, Wheezy.
You heard it here first, baby. -1,000, and I'm calling him to win. My only question about this fight is, I wonder how many calls were made before Silva said yes, right? I mean, like, how far down the list had Joaquim Silva had to have been when you're making phone calls to try to find Arman Tsarukyan in a fight? It just goes to show you that, like, the chances are is that, like, somebody got paid overtime to find Arman Tsarukyan in a fight, because they probably had to make like 17 phone calls before somebody said that they weren't injured or were going to a wedding that weekend. So, yeah, I mean, we don't really need to spend a lot of time on this one. It should be Arman Tsarukyan however he wants it. I mean, it's just, how can you even bet on Joaquim Silva when he got melted by Ricky Glenn? And then the last time we saw Ricky Glenn step into the cage, he looked completely done for. I mean, that was the guy that destroyed Silva. And then the next time we saw Glenn, he was completely done for. So, yeah, man, Tsarukyan however he wants it.
Okay. Glad we see eye to eye on that one, Wheezy. Let's go ahead and get to the main event of the evening, the real fight here on this card. We have got Marvin Vettori, the Italian Dream, taking on Jared Cannonier. And there's a lot to unpack here, Wheezy. We've got maybe some of the craziest line movement I've seen in a long time. Marvin Vettori opens up as like a -220 favorite here in this spot. And now we're looking at a pick'em. It's just been a flood of money on Jared Cannonier. We're looking at Marvin Vettori, who has fought the absolute peaks in the UFC competition at just 29 years old. Jared Cannonier is now 39 years old. He trains out of the MMA lab, and he is a freak of nature. I have no idea how he's still going and doing what he's doing at the ripe old age here of 39. But he's coming off that split decision win over Sean Strickland, where he showed he can keep pace with the highest volume guy the UFC has to offer. Maybe there's something to the crystals, Wheezy. We all laughed at Jared Cannonier when he started pulling out the crystals looking like a chick from downtown Scottsdale. But here he is at 39 in what could be close to a title eliminator situation in the UFC. Maybe I should give the crystals a shot. I will apologize to Mr. Cannonier for laughing at him for that. I mean, the guy just proves to still be elite. He's incredibly durable, insanely durable. Not that that matters in this fight, because Marvin Vettori couldn't bust a grape. He could take his best swing at it, and it's not going anywhere. Marvin is a volume guy. He doesn't have any power. He has 9 wins by submission, but beyond that, he's a grinder. This is a guy that'll put a pace on you and just wear you out, mix in takedowns, drag you to the floor. And when he can control people on the ground, he's unstoppable. It's the guys that he can't take down that give him the hardest time. You know, he had to be careful against Roman Dolidze. He lost to Robert Whittaker. He lost to Israel Adesanya, these guys that are slick enough to keep the fight standing. But he's still very young. You know, obviously, out of the two of these guys, Wheezy, Marvin's got more room to continue to grow. Is this the final version of Marvin, or is he still getting better? I don't know. His striking looked a little cleaner the last time out, but not by a lot. I can't tell if he's getting better, if he's just same old Marvin. But Wheezy, I'm old enough to remember Jared Cannonier fighting up at 205 and getting taken down 6 times by Ion Cutelaba. I was at that fight, Wheezy. Ultimate Fighter 24 finale. I watched that fight live in person in Las Vegas. It was a good night. Had no idea who Jared Cannonier was back then. He's really completely turned his career around, and he's far better than I ever gave him credit for being, especially back then. The lab has done wonders. But Sean Strickland got a takedown on this guy in the last fight. Wheezy, that guy never grapples, and he got a takedown on him. I think Marvin Vettori has an exceptionally clear path to victory here. And to quote my guy Gianni the Greek, 10-year age gap, Wheezy, anytime you've got that 10-year age gap, the hit rate of the younger fighter is just insanity, because older fighters can't keep pace with kids that are 10 years younger than them. It just is the way that it is, unfortunately. So I know a lot of sharp people that are backing Jared Cannonier in this spot, and it kind of terrifies me to be on the public side of the equation. But I think Marvin Vettori, I know he's far more durable than Derek Brunson. He's got far better cardio than Derek Brunson. But Derek Brunson, round one. That's what I was trying to say. Round one off of Jared Cannonier taking him down, and just couldn't keep pace after that, because that's what Derek Brunson does at this age. I think Marvin won't let up. I think a 5-round fight is built for Marvin. I think if he drops 2 rounds, it doesn't matter, because he'll win 4 and 5. Like, you might get a better number live. Maybe Jared Cannonier starts off strong. Maybe he hits Marvin with a couple big shots that wow people early, and he wins the first round. Wheezy, I just think Marvin takes this thing over. And I don't know that he can finish Jared Cannonier. He's never been submitted, and he's training at the lab. He's probably too slick for that. I got Marvin by decision here for the main event. What do you think, Wheezy?
Yeah, so I've actually got a bet on Jared Cannonier to win by decision, but it's not because I have this strong lean that I think Cannonier's better than this guy and that he's going to win the fight. It was strictly a numbers thing. Right now, this is 50-50 on the line, right? They've got, the bookies are basically saying Vettori's got a 50% chance to win this fight, and Cannonier's got a 50% chance to win this fight. So they're about -115, -110 apiece. But if I'm getting +300 on Cannonier by decision, and nobody finishes Marvin Vettori. I mean, maybe if you finish him, you're going to finish him by submission, because, you can't tough guy a choke. I mean, if you can't breathe, you're going to go to sleep, right? But you're not knocking out Marvin Vettori. So my thought is, if this is a 50-50 fight, and the bookies are right about that, and the market's right about that, well, then why wouldn't I take Cannonier at a 25% implied probability at +300 if this is going to be a 50-50 fight? Because I see this as going to decision. So I kind of feel like Cannonier's win condition, 90% of it is by decision. So why wouldn't I just take that +300 and say, you know what? If Cannonier wins the decision, I'm up 1.5 units. And if he doesn't, I'm down 0.5 units. I only got to win that bet 1 out of 3 times. I think this thing goes to decision like 7 or 8 out of 10 times.
I agree, Weezy.
And if that's the case, it's not like Marvin Vettori's like this crazy minute went around the feet. Everyone talks about Marvin Vettori's volume is great. His volume's okay. He attempts 12.36 distance strike attempts per minute. That's 2.17 above average. But trust me, that's not crazy volume. This guy, what he does well is mix in the takedowns. 27 of 61 on his takedown attempts. 44% takedown accuracy. He wins 80% of the control time positions that his fights are in, and his fights spend about 30% of the time there. But if this were, if Vettori gets a couple of takedowns and this fight stays at distance for 18 out of the 25 minutes, it's going to be a coin flip when we go to decision, just like the Strickland Cannonier fight was, in my opinion. So I think this is a very close one. I like the over 4.5 rounds at -150. I don't see Cannonier finishing Vettori. I don't really see Vettori finishing anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So -150 for the over 4.5. Cannonier by decision at +300, I think, is just on the pure numbers of it, a solid plus EV bet. But I think this is going to be a close fight. I really don't know who wins it.
Okay. And that's fair enough. I mean, the one thing that worries me just a little bit here, though, Wheezy, is does the total not feel a little trappy to you?
It could be. It could be, because there are a lot of fights that do finish inside the distance at 185 pounds. Now, that's my camera going off again because I just touched my mouse. But, like, for instance, I've got it right here on my prop template. 63 fights that have been scheduled for 5 rounds in the UFC in the middleweight division. 39% of those fights have went over 4.5 rounds, right? And we're paying 60%. But Vettori and Cannonier have both been scheduled for 5 rounds 4 times in the UFC. You know how many of those 8 fights went over 4.5 rounds, Clint?
How many?
7 of them. Right? So 7 of them means 87.5%. So that's a really good number to be getting. If we're getting 87.5% on the combined performance of these two, and we're only paying 60% on the price of the line, that's a really good number. So minus 150 is a good plus EV bet. If we make those bets over the long term, we're going to be plus EV. We're going to be making money over the long term because stylistically, I think it works. And by the numbers, it works as well.
Okay. I like it, Wheezy. I like it. So we're leaning over. We're looking at the durability and the lack of finishing power on the side of none other than Marvin Vettori. And then we just got to hope his legendary chin continues to hold up against Jared Cannonier. Over's probably the play. I'm picking Marvin Vettori. I still think he just does what Marvin Vettori does and manages to work the takedowns. The deeper this fight goes, I see the people in the chat, you're talking about the sweat being a thing. Like other fighters don't sweat, though, guys. I mean, it's not like that's ever really been a thing that factors with one fighter more than other people. Everybody sweats. Marvin Vettori still hits takedowns. So, I mean, he got 4 against Israel Adesanya. He's been trying a lot less on his takedowns and working more on his striking basically ever since then. But I think we see a vintage Marvin Vettori here on Saturday. I think he goes back to the takedowns. He knows that's going to be his path to victory, and he lands probably 4 or 5 of them. And I think Jared probably has a tough time dealing with it. And as this fight gets deeper, Marvin will kind of distance himself that way. But we'll see. Good luck, everybody. This is a crazy fight card. These are the weeks where you can kind of choose your destiny, folks. Remember when you were a kid and you got to have those choose your own adventure books where, it'd be like, take this path and turn to this page. That's this week. If you guys want to walk into the flames, if you want to bet some of these very low level fights on the money lines and take these finish props and really dive into the variance, you're going to come out smelling like roses or you're going to be broke on Saturday. It's up to you which way you want to address it. I'm probably going to be a little bit more cautious on these spots. I'm going to try and find the spots I feel a little bit better about and then fire off on those rather than going haywire and breaking out the machine gun for this particular card. Wheezy, thank you so much for rocking with me and listening to me drone on about Chris Curtis and eye pokes for 2.5 hours, man. I always love talking fights with you and really appreciate your statistical analysis that you do so much better than anybody else in the space, man. Now's the chance. Say whatever you want to the chat and, shout out your shows, programs, sponsors, whatever you got going on, man. Have at it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, Clint. I always enjoyed talking fights with you. So we've done this several times and it gets more fun every single time. Thank you to all of you that are hanging out in the chat. Passing on the NBA finals to listen to your Uncle Wheezy and Clint break down these fights. Appreciate each and every one of you. Pub Sports Radio, you can find me there for Stat Diggers every week, the Watch Along, the DFS show. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Wheezy. You can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. And what you can really do to support my work is join the Patreon. My Patreon, I give out picks. I give out my bets. I'm a plus EV bettor. I'm a long-term winner. But I think what the best thing about my Patreon is that you're getting access to all the stats. You're paying for analytics. And my analytics right now, I have no problem saying this. You're not going to find anybody giving the analytics that I have for the price that I'm giving it to you for. These, $5 a month, $10 a month, and $20 a month are the tiers on my Patreon. And it's going to give you access to over-under stats, to fighter stats, to divisional averages and whether the fighter is above or below that, color coded. It's the best analytical package out there. So if you want to support my work, check me out at patreon.com/Uncle Wheezy. And thank you, Clint, for having me on the show again. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 75 and make these bookies cry on Saturday.
Hell yeah, Wheezy. I want to shave some more ass on Saturday. Hopefully later in the week, I'll be tuning in to figure out what that was, because it took me by surprise this week that we were on the same side. I got to tune in and hear what the ass shaving of the week is this week. Make sure you guys support Wheezy. Give him a follow. Shout out to him on social media. Seriously, guys, there's not a lot of people that provide the kind of insight and numbers that Wheezy does. We need to support this guy. Thank you all for being here for the show, especially you diehards that have sat through 2.5 hours for this one. If you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up on your way out. And guys, I really just appreciate you. You know, we talk about it time and time again. I lost a sponsor, this week, and that's been brutal. That affects my bottom line, my income, me supporting my wife and my kid. But I never would have even had that opportunity if not for you guys who enjoyed the content, if not for you guys that sat and listened, if not for you guys that, have hit the like button and supported me and hit my retweet on Twitter and stuff like that a million times. So even knowing that I'm taking a step backwards, hopefully it's, one step back and then 2 forward afterward. It's you guys that have made the distance, made the difference. And the podcast is still growing and still going in the right direction. Thanks to you guys. I do want to let you guys know we hit a milestone actually, and I didn't know about it until just recently. In April, for the first time in April, the podcast audio version passed 10,000 downloads in a month. So that's all shows combined. That's all the shows that I do. But we passed 10,000 downloads per month, and we haven't gone under that bar since. So we're still headed the right direction. And I just want to tell you guys how grateful I am for everything you guys have done for me. So with that, I'm going to leave you with that. We're going to kick some more ass. We're going to keep punching uphill. We're going to keep going the right direction. The 2023 Revenge Tour is not stopping on us. Wheezy, let's kick some ass. Everybody get out there, be good, shave that ass, and let's roll.